Chapter 1058. Shadowless Demon's body shook. He stared at him with wide eyes, his face full of shock and disbelief. He did not dare to imagine that He Tiangang would still dare to say such arrogant words after seeing the golden-eyed demon snake transform into an abyssal demon dragon. He really dared to say that he could kill an abyssal demon dragon. Did he not know that everything would turn to dust under the dragon breath? This was a dragon, a real abyssal demon dragon, not some random flood dragon. Furthermore, even if this abyssal demon dragon had just been born, and its strength was far from its peak, if the three of them risked their lives, they might have a chance. But even if they succeeded, so what? Everyone in the abyss knew that the abyssal demon dragon race was very protective. Anyone who dared to kill someone with the bloodline of the demon race would suffer their revenge. Abyss City was the best example. Even the entire abyss had guessed that the demon dragon race was involved in this matter. Many of the abyss kings were enraged because of this. But so what? Abyss City had fallen into the abyss, and the tens of millions of demon race in the city had perished. But until today, the demon dragon race was still fine. They were still above all the other races in the abyss, and were in a position that no one dared to provoke. Could the three of them stop the demon dragon race's revenge? Don't joke around. They would probably be crushed in an instant. Brother Tiangang Demon is right. We have no way out. If we don't kill him, we will die here today. The master of Black Swamp City spoke slowly. It was unknown what secret technique he had used, but his eyes gradually turned red. At the same time, above his head, the eyes of the giant python shadow also seemed to be soaked in blood. The fear and trembling in its eyes had completely disappeared, and what was left was only violence and destruction. The Demon Dragon clan is indeed terrifying. Even if we succeed in this matter, we will still be hunted down. Shadowless Demon's heart trembled. They were all crazy, but the fear in his eyes had mostly disappeared. The master of Blackpool City's words reminded him that even if the abyssal demon dragon race were to take revenge, that would happen after today. Surviving the moment was the key. If they died, everything would be meaningless. Furthermore, although the demon dragon race was scary, it was not like they had no chance of survival, because behind them stood Lord Lu Hua, a peak abyssal walker. Even the demon dragon race had to give him sufficient respect. Thinking about this, Shadowless Demon's eyes brightened slightly. His despairing heart was once again filled with hope. However, all of this was based on the fact that they had to survive this day. Kill. The Black Marsh City Master's snake-type devil bloodline was suppressed by the demon dragon's aura, but he was the first to attack. He punched out, and abyss devil energy gathered from all directions. In the next moment, the huge eye above its head turned crimson, and the roaring python phantom flashed into it. Rumble! As the boundless demonic chi roiled, it actually condensed into a terrifying python with scarlet eyes that was several hundred meters long. Facing the abyssal demon dragon, it showed no fear at all. Instead, its blood-red eyes were filled with bloodlust and destruction. Without the slightest hesitation, the giant python, which was hundreds of meters long, fiercely swung its tail and pounced at the abyssal demon dragon like a bolt of lightning. At almost the same time, He Tiangang also attacked. He lifted his hand and placed it between his eyebrows. With a light cracking sound, his eyes split open and dark red blood flowed out. But now, the blood that flowed out didn't drip to the ground. Instead, it seemed to be drawn by an invisible strength towards the three-headed demon, Hound Phantom, above his head. In the legends of the Abyss, the three-headed demon Hound was one of the incarnations of the Abyss Will. It was the gatekeeper of the Lord of Destruction. It had an extremely cruel and ruthless personality, and its 3 dog heads could swallow everything. Even the world itself could become a part of its food. But the reason that legends were called legends was because there were far too many exaggerated factors. For instance, the so-called Lord of Destruction represented the cruel and ruthless side of the Abyss Will. Although he had countless believers, he had never truly descended into any part of the abyss. Although the three-headed demon hound wasn't as powerful as the legends made it out to be, the lawlessness in its demonic bloodline was real. Because of this, He Tiangang dared to be the first to express the thought of killing the abyssal demon dragon. Since he had said it, he naturally couldn't hesitate when it was time to act. As the blood flowed upwards, it poured into the three-headed demon, Hound Phantom. Immediately, countless lines began to rapidly appear within its body. It was like blood vessels were wildly growing, covering every part of the three-headed demon, Hound's body. As this happened, its body gradually solidified until it was no different from a living creature. Roar, roar, roar. The three dog heads reared back their heads and roared. Their 6 eyes, cold, cruel, or greedy, locked onto the abyssal demon dragon. Then, their thick and powerful hind legs kicked outwards. Their entire body turned into a black shadow that crazily pounced forwards. These two madmen. Shadowless demon muttered to himself. In the next moment, his entire body suddenly exploded, turning into a black shadow that fused into the abyssal demon dragon's shadow on the ground. Then, thick shadow chains appeared, wrapping around the abyssal demon dragon's shadow, constantly contracting and tightening. In the abyss world, countless demons knew of his great name, Shadowless Demon, as well as his superb concealment methods that allowed him to come and go without a trace. But in order to live to this day, he had encountered countless dangers and powerful enemies. Of course, it wasn't just because he could hide and run fast that he could preserve his life. Shadows were invisible and intangible, but without a doubt, they could also kill people. Roar. The abyssal demon dragon reared its head back and roared, its eyes filled with endless anger. It couldn't believe that these 3 lowly ants in front of it, after confirming that it had become the noblest demon dragon in the abyss, still dared to attack it. And it was obvious that they were prepared to kill it. "I will tear you all to shreds." As it roared, the abyssal demon dragon violently rolled around. Cracking sounds rang out in the void around its body, giving off the feeling that an invisible barrier was about to be torn apart. In the shadows on the ground, the shadow chains wrapping around the abyssal demon dragon's body began to quietly disintegrate. But in the next moment, they condensed at an astonishing speed, wrapping around its shadow once more. Of course, in order to accomplish this, it wasn't without a price. Shadowless Demon's body constantly trembled, as if it were suffering a series of blows. Beneath its black robes, drops of blood constantly dripped down, shattering into pieces as they fell to the ground. And this blood was seeping out of his mouth, nose, ears, and ears. How could imprisoning an abyssal demon dragon be a simple matter? One naturally had to pay a high enough price. And at this time, the blood-eyed python and 3-headed demon hound that had rushed out had already begun melee combat with the abyssal demon dragon. Rumble, rumble. Violent fluctuations of aura swept out in all directions, like raging storms and raging waves. Even the demon beasts that had lost their intelligence howled in anguish under the shroud of this terrifying aura, constantly retreating. Thus, in the vast beast tide formed by millions of demon beasts, a strange blank space appeared. Of the 40 demon generals that had followed the 3 demon commanders out of Jilu City, there were now less than 30 left. At this time, their eyes were wide open, looking at the slaughter in the distance. Their hearts were filled with fear, nearly drowning their minds. The demon general rank belonged to the abyss. Those that had just stepped into the ruling class were absolute masters in any faction. As long as one joined, they would obtain a high status and a series of other benefits. But now, facing the battle between the 3 demon commanders that had taken the super invincible great strength pill and the newborn abyssal demon dragon, they had no right to intervene. Even if they were just a little closer, they might be directly torn to pieces by the violent power. Swallowing hard, the demon generals carefully retreated. All they could do now was to wait. If the 3 demon commanders won, they might have a chance to survive. After all, in the eyes of the abyssal demon dragon, they were merely ant-like existences. They wouldn't be taken seriously at all. In this way, they would be able to escape this calamity. Of course, being looked down upon by others was not a pleasant thing, but compared to surviving, it was nothing. There was a saying, "Just treat me like a fart and let me go." Although this saying was vulgar and even more inappropriate to use on women, it was more appropriate to express the current mentality of the demon generals. Reality proved that the abyssal demon dragon was indeed an abyssal demon dragon. Even in its newborn state, it was still incomparably terrifying. The blood-eyed giant python, which was not afraid of death, was bitten by the abyssal demonic dragon. It let out an unwilling roar, and in the next moment, its huge body was directly bitten into pieces, tumbling and quickly disappearing. The light in the eyes of the master of Black Swamp City instantly disappeared. His entire body was like a stone as he fell to the ground with a thud. His aura dissipated along with the death of the blood-eyed giant python. Death came cruelly and without warning. A trace of sorrow and self-deprecation flashed in He Tingong's eyes. Trying to kill the abyssal demon dragon was indeed an impossible task. The master of Black Swamp City had been killed. The barely resisting situation had already collapsed. If he continued to fight, he would only be sending himself to his grave. Roar! The three-headed demon hound of hell roared towards the sky. Then its entire body exploded into pieces. The phantom of a massive stone gate appeared within the shock waves of the self-detonation. Although it was blurry and indistinct, one could clearly sense the aura of time emanating from it. It was so thick that it was almost corporeal. It was as if this stone gate had existed since the birth of the abyss. Outside it, there was a huge stone statue. It was a dog beast that guarded the gate. It had 3 heads on its neck, and all 6 eyes were closed. Now, this huge dog beast statue seemed to have sensed something. The eye on the left head trembled a few times before slowly opening. Kacha! Kacha! The surface of the abyssal demon dragon's body instantly turned gray. It was like an exposed stone that had been weathered for countless years. It instantly lost all of its vitality. He Tiangang fell to the sky. He was grabbed by the shadowless demon. His figure quickly rushed out, his other hand holding the corpse of the master of Black Swamp City as he madly fled into the distance. The hunt had failed. The only thing he could do now was to escape from here. We failed. Let's run. Go, go. The demon generals were terrified as they scattered in all directions. It was impossible to return to Julu City. Since they could not kill the abyssal demon dragon, then under its rage, the entire Julu City would definitely be burned to ashes. Roar! The abyssal demon dragon roared. The petrification on its body suddenly shattered into countless pieces that fell to the ground. Its giant eyes were filled with endless anger, as well as shame and anger. It opened its mouth and spat out a breath. A dragon breath as hot and red as the magma of the abyss covered all the demon generals. Within its range, including them, as well as hundreds of demon beasts, were instantly burned to ashes. The might of the dragon breath was infinite. Bang! The abyssal demon dragon crashed into the ground, creating a giant pit. Countless cracks spread out. It gasped for breath, blood constantly dripping from the corners of its mouth. In its previous battle with the 3 demon commanders, it had also been injured, and the breath it released in its rage had caused its injuries to become even more serious. The giant dragon eyes coldly looked at Julu City. The abyssal demon dragon suppressed the urge to destroy it. Now was not the time. It had to recover from its injuries as soon as possible and increase its strength to its peak. At that time, the entire city and all the demons in the city would be completely reduced to dust under its wrath. Roar! The abyssal demon dragon reared its head back and roared. The beast tide that it controlled began to attack Julu City once more, fiercer and more fearless than before. At this time, a beam of light suddenly appeared in the air. From a tricky angle, it stabbed into the abyssal demon dragon's body. Roar! A pained and angry dragon roar exploded in the beast tide. A woman was sent flying backwards. A moment later, the beam of light appeared once more. This time, it didn't continue to stab at the abyssal demon dragon. Instead, it dragged a figure as it howled towards Julu City. Behind it, the abyssal demon dragon was incomparably weak. At the same time, it was even more angry and resentful. Chapter 1059. The master of Black Swamp City died on the spot. Hei Tiangang was heavily injured and fainted. The 40 demon generals of Julu City all died in the beast tide. The hunting plan to disperse the beast tide had completely failed. In a quiet room in the Thousand Eye Palace, the air was so heavy it almost froze. Old Fox's face was bitter. He could not help but close his eyes and sigh. Abyss Demon Dragon, the beast tide actually gave birth to a true Abyss Demon Dragon. This meant that Julu City was destined to be destroyed. Now that the situation had reached this stage, unless Lu Hu took action, there was no turning back. He stood up and opened his eyes. I will go and tell Lu Hu about this. What happens in the end? Let's see the will of the heavens. With the demon dragon tribe's vicious and vengeful style, once Julu City was breached, all of them would be killed. This result was more hopeless than what they had expected. As for whether Lu Hu would take action, to be honest, Old Fox did not have any confidence. After all, to an existence like him who had lived for countless years and stood at the peak of the abyss, whether it was Julu City or the demon race, they were nothing more than fleeting clouds. It was difficult for life and death to affect his mind. Everything depended on Lu Hu's thoughts. Shadowless Demon stood up. I will go with you. Under the black robe, his voice was weak and his face was extremely pale. It was because of his injuries and the backlash from taking the invincible strength pill, trying to kill an abyss demon. Even if he could use his concealment ability to escape after Julu City was breached, sooner or later he would be hunted down and killed. Unless Lu Hu appeared and resolved this matter, he would not sit and watch the result occur since it involved his life and death. Old Fox nodded. Let's go. The little courtyard was still as peaceful as usual. Occasionally there would be demons that passed by, their eyes filled with awe and fear. The silent deaths of Een Hanshin and the demons that had intruded had already cast a terrifying shadow over this little courtyard. These demons did not know the identity of the owner of this little courtyard, but without a doubt he was an extremely powerful existence. The actions of the Thousand Eye Palace and Old Fox's actions had further confirmed this point. However, there was more or less a hint of peace in the eyes of these demons. The beast tide outside the city was becoming more and more terrifying. Even the ordinary demons could already feel the terrifying aura of a storm. Under such circumstances, it was naturally a good thing for them to have such a powerful existence in the city. After all, even if it was out of consideration for their own safety, they would not just watch as the beast tide destroyed Julu City. Mr. Lu Hua, Shadowless Demon, and I are here to see you. The fox elder knocked on the door, took a step back, and said respectfully. A few breaths later, the courtyard doors opened, and Liaosher glanced at the two. Come in. Thank you, miss. After expressing their thanks, the two of them entered the courtyard. They were greeted by Qin Yu's heavy expression. Could it be that he already knew? This thought flashed through Old Fox's mind, and he bowed. Mr. Lu Hua, the master of Blackpool City, has died in battle, and Hei Tiangang has fainted from his injuries. The hunting plan has failed. Qin Yu's eyes twitched as he looked at Shadowless Demon. I want to know, what happened in the beast tide? Shadowless Demon nodded respectfully and told him everything that had happened in the beast tide. He did not dare to hide anything. Mister, this is what happened. Even though it was only a newborn abyssal demon dragon, its strength was still terrifying. We risked our lives, but we were still defeated in the end. I had no choice but to bring He Tiangang and the master of Black Pool City's corpses back. The other 40 demon generals were all buried in the beast's hide. Qin Yu closed his eyes. Although his face was expressionless, his heart was wildly twitching. This woman, Liao Shi's mouth, was simply too accurate. Everything she said was on point. Abyssal demon dragon. That was an abyssal demon dragon, an existence that stood at the top of the food chain in the abyss. To even release such a thing, it could be seen just how strong the will of the abyss was in its desire to kill them. How could they live like this? 3 demon commanders that had taken a super invincible strength pill had been defeated. 1 died, 1 fainted, and 1 escaped. If he were to face this abyssal demon dragon, how many chances did he have of escaping? Even if he said 10%, that would be putting gold on his face. The courtyard fell silent. Old Fox and Shadowless Demon didn't dare to say anything, but there was a faint anticipation in their eyes. Qin Yu could feel the anticipation in their eyes, and he also knew what they were hoping for. But the problem was that he wasn't as strong as these people imagined him to be. Moreover, once Giant Deer City was breached, Qin Yu didn't doubt that he and Liao Shi would be the first targets of the abyssal demon dragon. Perhaps they would even die in front of them. As Qin Yu thought of this, he felt a throbbing pain in his head. He took a deep breath and rubbed between his eyebrows. He waved his hand. I understand. You can leave first. Without my orders, don't disturb me again. Not obtaining the response they wanted, Old Fox and Shadowless Demon revealed disappointment in their eyes. But they didn't dare to reveal anything. They respectfully bowed and left the courtyard. After the courtyard doors closed and isolated the inside from the outside, Liao Shi turned around, revealing an expression that said, I'm smart and intelligent. See, I told you before that things weren't so simple. Now you should believe me, right? She smacked her lips, her voice filled with excitement. Abyssal demon dragon, it's an abyssal demon dragon. I heard that they are the favored children of the abyss, and their entire bodies are treasures. Their scales, flesh, and blood are all top materials for refining potions. Not to mention dragon teeth, dragon heart, dragon liver, and so on. Just thinking about it makes me drool. Qin Yu's complexion paled, and his fingers trembled. He almost laughed out of anger. Things had already come to this, and yet she was still in the mood to think about these things? Qin Yu wasn't too sure what the abyssal demon dragon's body parts were like. But if the situation continued to worsen like this, they would soon become meat and blood for the abyssal demon dragon to chew on. That would surely be an extremely sour taste. Calm down, I have to calm down. Being angry with this crazy woman isn't a wise choice. And now, if I want to live, I can only think of a way to escape from her body. Qin Yu took a deep breath, desperately suppressing all sorts of thoughts in his mind. He said in a low voice, Teacher Liao, it's time to tell us your plan. Giant Deer City will inevitably be destroyed. We have to flee for our lives. Liao Shi blinked. What method? Qin Yu roared. Of course, it's the method to survive. Don't tell me you're really just going to wait for death here. Liao Shi looked at Qin Yu, a strange expression on his face. When did you develop this illusion that I have a way to escape Jilu City? Liao Shi, Qin Yu clenched his teeth. I don't care what you're hiding, but we're going to die soon. If you don't tell me, I'll have to run away by myself. Liao Shi curled his lips. It's not that I'm looking down on you, but facing the pursuit of an abyssal demon dragon. Even an abyssal king would find it hard to survive. Do you think you're confident you can escape? Qin Yu was silent for several breaths of time. Then he calmed down. Even if I'm not confident, I still want to give it a try. It's better than waiting for death here. He stood up and lightly said, Since we're acquainted, I hope you can survive. Goodbye. This crazy woman. If he didn't force her a bit, she clearly wasn't going to say anything. If you leave me, with your current condition, you'll definitely die. At that time, no matter what methods you have, it will all be useless. I want to see just how long you can last. Hurry up and ask me to stay. Admit your wrongs. Hurry up and say something." Qin Yu lifted a hand towards the courtyard door, his heart racing. Even at this time, she still hadn't called out to him. "Liao Shi, consider yourself fierce." Pulling open the courtyard door, Qin Yu clenched his teeth and prepared to leave. Bang! It wasn't Qin Yu who fell, nor was it Liao Shi who called out to him. Rather, it was a woman who fell from the sky, crashing into the ground. She tumbled over in front of Qin Yu, motionless and unconscious. What was going on? Qin Yu glanced over. Not too far away, Old Fox's eyes were wide open, and he had a stunned expression on his face. Although he couldn't see Shadowless Demon's appearance, from the way he was standing there in a daze, he was likely in the same state. "Mister, who is this woman?" Old Fox cautiously asked. Qin Yu's heart twitched. "Who should I ask if you're asking me? Why did she fall so suddenly and almost hit my head? Could it be that he had been plagued by bad luck recently? First, he had inexplicably entered the abyss. Then he had a burden like Liao Shi, and now he was being hunted down by the will of the abyss. However, this woman did seem a bit familiar. Qin Yu thought for a moment. He bent down and brushed aside her hair. A beautiful face entered his sight, and he couldn't help but narrow his eyes. He actually knew her. This woman who had fallen from the sky and almost hit Qin Yu's head was the mysterious Mayanya who had encountered the striped crow not long after entering the abyss. She had left and returned because she wanted to use a crystallized heart of an abyssal king that had lost its source to complete a deal with him. Why was this woman here? And from the looks of it, she had suffered heavy injuries. Putong! There was a dull thud behind him. Qin Yu fiercely turned around to see Liao Shi lying on the ground. His complexion changed. He grabbed Mayanya and entered the small courtyard. Pa! The courtyard doors closed, isolating them from the outside world. Bringing Mayanya in had been a subconscious action. Qin Yu examined her. Although her injuries were heavy, she wouldn't die for the time being. Then he casually tossed her to the side. On the other hand, Liao Shi's condition wasn't very good. She was unconscious, and her face was incomparably pale. Her aura was stable, and there didn't seem to be any danger. Qin Yu couldn't find anything wrong with her. It was as if she had fallen asleep. But it was clear that Liao Shi wasn't sleeping. This sort of problem that couldn't be found was truly troublesome. Contrary to Qin Yu's expectations, the unconscious Liao Shi only needed 2 hours to wake up. As soon as she saw Qin Yu, she directly asked, "Where is that little beauty that fell from the sky?" Qin Yu sneered. "I think you should worry about yourself first." "Don't talk nonsense." Liao Shi glared at him. "I see hope in this little beauty. Do you want to live or not?" Qin Yu turned and walked away. "I'll bring her here now." Qin Yu didn't know what Liao Shi meant by seeing hope. But this was the first time she had mentioned that there was a chance of survival. Qin Yu didn't dare to be careless. The unconscious Mayanya was brought in front of Liao Shi. This demon woman's complexion was even paler, and her condition was worse than before. She had already suffered serious injuries and had barely managed to struggle to escape to Giant Deer City. She was like a lamp that had run out of oil. Qin Yu had only picked her up and brought her in. He hadn't given her any treatment at all. She could already be considered lucky that she was still alive. Liao Shi let out a long breath and glared at Qin Yu. "It's a good thing that a good person didn't die. Otherwise you would be in deep trouble. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and save her." Qin Yu knew how to save people, but he really didn't know what to do to save a demon. As for Liao Shi, although he had woken up, he still had a weak and listless appearance. It was already good enough that he was awake, so he clearly didn't have the strength to help. Luckily, Qin Yu wasn't alone. After Old Fox was called in, although he was surprised why Sir Wildfire wanted him to help, he didn't dare to reveal anything. He immediately went to work. After a series of treatments and 7 or 8 magic medicines, Old Fox wiped away his sweat. He said that he hadn't failed in his mission and that his life had been saved. He would wake up in around 2 to 4 hours. Chini nodded and sent Old Fox away. 2 hours later, Mayanya really did wake up. Seeing Chinyu reveal his true appearance, her eyes widened. She clearly didn't expect to see him here. She barely managed to ask, "Was it you who saved me?" "You can think of it that way." Chinyu waved his hand. "But none of that is important. What is important is what I will ask you next. You had best tell me the truth. Otherwise, I believe you will regret that you are still alive." This was clearly a threat. There was no concealment at all. Mayanya was stunned, as if she didn't think Chinyu would say something like this. After a moment of silence, she said, "Please rest assured that I will tell you everything I know." "Very good." Chinyu was expressionless. "How were you injured?" Mayanya said, "It was the abyssal demon dragon outside the city." A trace of instinctive fear appeared in her eyes. It was clear she had recalled just how terrifying the abyssal demon dragon was. Mayanya never imagined that it would be so powerful. In a situation where both sides were wounded and she had launched a sneak attack, she had still failed in the end. Chinyu narrowed his eyes. "Why did you attack the abyssal demon dragon? Don't tell me you want to be a dragon-slaying heroine." Mayanya fell silent. Chinyu coldly sneered. "I don't think you need me to repeat what I just said." Mayanya's breathing quickened. It was clear that her emotions were violently fluctuating. Finally, she bitterly smiled. "Because I want to take back a treasure that originally belonged to my clan." Glancing at Chinyu, Mayanya clenched her teeth. "This treasure involves the secrets of my clan. I absolutely cannot speak of it." Chinyu had no expression. "It's clear that you don't have the right to choose right now. Or perhaps you can experience the consequences of refusing me." Chapter 1060. Mayanya had indeed tried, but the final result proved that she had overestimated her own endurance and determination. Or it could be said that Chinyu's methods of saving people weren't particularly good, but he had a decent talent for torturing others. In short, he had successfully obtained the information he wanted from Mayanya. For instance, Mayanya wasn't a so-called royal spirit demon race. This wasn't something she said of her own volition. But because Chinyu had interrogated her, she had been unable to maintain her transformation and revealed her true appearance. The nine-tailed demon fox race was the only race that maintained the characteristics of demon beasts and was respected as a superior royal race. Of course, there was the past part to this. According to Mayanya's one-sided story, the nine-tailed demon fox race was born with the ability to confuse the mind and transform. Because of this, they were envied by several other powerful royal races. After a calamity, the entire race was nearly slaughtered. In that calamity, the most precious treasure of the nine-tailed demon fox race, the 1,000 illusion demon mirror, was lost and never appeared in the abyss again. Today, there were only a few remaining members of the nine-tailed demon fox race. Mayanya was already one of the most outstanding members. In order to revive the nine-tailed demon fox race, she had changed her appearance and traveled through many layers of the abyss in order to find the whereabouts of the 1,000 illusion demon mirror. Not long ago, Mayanya had finally found a clue and locked onto the 3 demon commander level demon beasts in the beast tide. Thus, when the Blackpool City Lord died in battle and Hei Tiangang fainted from his wounds, Mayanya took this chance to kill the abyssal demon dragon and take back the 1,000 illusion demon mirror. The final result was that she escaped to Giant Deer City with heavy injuries and fell into Chinyu's hands. Of course, the entire process was like this, but there were some details that were a bit embarrassing. For instance, when Mayanya dispelled her transformation and restored her nine-tailed demon fox appearance, she was completely naked. According to her explanation, this was a requirement that nine-tailed demon fox race had to fulfill when they transformed. They could not be restrained in any way. As she spoke, Her face flushed red and her body shivered. Her 9 furry tails tried to cover up her sensitive spots. It was clear that her heart wasn't as calm as she appeared on the surface. However, what Mianya did not know was that when she tried her best to use her tail to cover her body, the faintly discernible nudity was extremely shocking. Recently, Chinyu had suffered a great deal from the Liaoshi. Although he believed he had a certain level of resistance to it, he still couldn't help but gulp several times. He thought that this 9-tailed demon foxwoman's alluring ability was far greater than that of a fox girl's. Cough! Chinyu flicked his sleeves and demonic energy surged, condensing into a black dress that automatically covered her body. What use does the 1,000 illusion demon mirror have? Mianya looked at Chinyu with some surprise. She didn't think that he wouldn't even know about this. In other words, it wasn't that she'd exposed anything. Being captured and interrogated by this person seemed more like a spur-of-the-moment decision. Or perhaps there was some other hidden reason. But no matter what it was, this at least gave Mianya a glimmer of hope. She took a deep breath and said, "If you can help me obtain the 1,000 illusion demon mirror, my 9-tailed demon fox clan is willing to establish an abyssal blood contract and recognize you as our master. Afterwards, we will be at your beck and call. We will satisfy all of your requests." Chinyu's face stiffened. He thought that her words were a bit too blatant. Just who did she think he was? Did she really think that he would covet her beauty? Just now, Mianya seemed to have mentioned that most of the 9-tailed magic fox clan were women and children. In other words, once he became their master, he would be able to obtain a wave of beautiful and ever-changing 9-tailed magic foxwomen. Ah, stop! Hurry and stop! What nonsense was she thinking about? Chinyu steadied his mind and slowly said, "Don't make me repeat myself a 3rd time. Tell me, what is the use of the 1,000 illusion demon mirror?" Mianya clenched her teeth. "It can help my 9-tailed demon fox clan cultivate a secret inherited technique and cultivate a powerful incarnation to protect the safety of my clan. But this ability is only useful for my 9-tailed demon fox clan. Even if others obtained it, they would not be able to use it." With a creaking sound, the door was pushed open from the outside. Liaoshi walked in with a pale complexion. She glanced at Mianya and said, "9-tailed demon fox, you really are beautiful." She looked up and down several more times. She said to Chinyu, "Such a delicate beauty." She already said that she would allow you to do whatever you want with her. If you aren't tempted, can you still be considered a man? Chinyu's face darkened. He clenched his teeth and lowered his voice. "Why did you run out here?" Liaoshi snorted. "Of course I came out because I've already obtained the information I need. You're so angry. Are you blaming me for ruining your plans? What a good Chinyu. Your thoughts really aren't pure. Speak. Did you also have bad thoughts towards me in the past? Haha. I've really underestimated your guts." Chinyu's lips twitched and he roared inwardly. "If it weren't for you carelessly exposing yourself to me, would I have seen it or not?" But if he said these words, it seemed a bit too much. Moreover, he had to admit that although he didn't have any bad thoughts towards her, he still felt comfortable when he looked at her. He coughed and changed the topic. "Do you already have a plan?" Liaoshi sneered, a man expression on her face. She rolled her eyes and said, "Of course." Her eyes swept over Chinyu. She couldn't help but sigh inwardly. This boy's luck was truly heaven-defying. At this time, a helper had actually dropped down from the heavens. Of course, this helper wasn't referring to Mianya, but rather the crucial information she had revealed. For instance, the 9-tailed fox clan's supreme treasure, the 1,000 illusion demon mirror. Liaoshi pushed open the door and walked in. As soon as Mianya saw her, she immediately fell into a state of extreme panic. She didn't know who Liaoshi was, nor did she emit the least bit of a powerful aura. But the instinctive perception of her bloodline caused Mianya's soul to shiver. Her thoughts went blank and she couldn't think at all. Haha, you little fox, your perception isn't bad. Then, be a good little fox, and let me take some blood from your body. Yes, just like that. Don't resist me. I am very gentle, and you won't feel any pain at all. Liao Shi cut a small incision on Mianya's palm and took out a small bottle of blood. A satisfied expression crossed his face. All right, you can continue to rest. But don't forget what I said just now. The nine-tailed demon fox clan was this boy's servant. Mianya's eyes widened. Her instincts told her that if she didn't refute him now, then this matter would become an unchangeable fact. It was as if Liao Shi's words harnessed some kind of unparalleled power of laws. But that clearly wasn't the case. I said that he would help us find the 1,000 illusion demon mirror before we would willingly serve him as our master. Liao Shi narrowed his eyes. Just from this expression alone, it was actually quite similar to Qin Yu's. What? Do you want to go back on your word? Mianya paled. She quickly shook her head. Everything will follow your will. Liao Shi patted her face. Be good and rest. He glanced at Qin Yu and turned to leave. Qin Yu followed behind. After the door closed, Liao Shi curled his lips. Qin Yu, I've helped you subdue the nine-tailed demon fox clan that produces many beauties. You're so reckless. So why haven't you thanked me yet? Bah. Wasn't it because they were forced to temporarily compromise? Could it be that just because of a few words from you that it would become the truth? But at this time, Qin Yu clearly wasn't in the mood to argue with Liao Shi. He directly asked, What is your plan? Under the shadow of death, everything else was pushed to the side. After all, compared to life and death, there was nothing important in this world. This wasn't selfishness or fear of death, but rather the instinctive resistance and struggle of any living being towards death. Liao Shi stretched out 2 fingers and snapped them. It's simple. As long as you can obtain the 1,000 illusions demonic mirror from the body of the abyssal demon dragon outside the city, we'll have a chance to survive this calamity. Qin Yu's complexion paled. You want me to steal the 1,000 illusion demon mirror from the abyssal demon dragon? That's right. Didn't shadowless demons say that of the 3 demon commander level demon beasts outside the city, the demon ape and crow willingly allowed themselves to be swallowed by the golden-eyed demon snake? Now I understand that this is all because of the 1,000 illusion demon mirror. Whether it is the demon ape or the crow, they're both avatars of the golden-eyed demon snake created by drawing support from the 1,000 illusion demon mirror. This is why they were able to perfectly cooperate with each other in the beast tide without any conflict at all. Moreover, they were able to fuse together in a moment of crisis and transform into the abyssal demon dragon. A look of excitement appeared on Liao Shi's face, and his voice became even more urgent. Let me tell you, Qin Yu, this is a lucky chance for you. Even though the 1,000 illusions demonic mirror is just as that little fox said, that only members of the nine-tailed demon fox clan are able to fully activate its power. With her blood, I'll be able to break through its restrictions as a piece of cake. At that time, not only will you be able to cultivate powerful avatars, but most importantly, the 1,000 illusion demon mirror will be able to solidify into a demonic state. I have absolute confidence that I can help you obtain a demonic transformation that is no weaker than the abyssal demon dragon, or even stronger. She couldn't hold it in any longer, and her face flushed red. She took a deep breath and continued, How about it? Aren't you very moved? Let me tell you, this kind of thing is only possible because of me. Aren't you extremely excited? You can't help but want to sincerely pray to the heavens that you can meet me. What a great fortune it is for you to meet me. Even I am shaken by it. Qin Yu's lips twitched. After listening to her ramble on for so long, he understood. But all of this seemed to have a precondition. In other words, he had to take out the nine-tailed demon fox's treasure from the abyssal demon dragon's body, the so-called 1,000 illusion demon mirror. He had already reminded this woman just now, so why didn't she understand? How could he possibly do this alone? The Blackpool City Lord, He Tiangang, and Shadowless Demon had joined forces, and even swallowed a super invincible strength pill. Even so, they had ended up in such a pitiful state. How could he possibly end up any better? He, let alone taking out the 1,000 illusion demon mirror from the abyssal demon dragon's body. He would probably be torn to pieces in a single exchange. Liao Shi, can you wake up a bit? Is this your plan? Qin Yu endured and endured, but in the end he couldn't hold it in any more. He clenched his teeth and roared, "Are you trying to trick me into going to my death so that you can think of a way to escape?" She couldn't blame Qin Yu for being so sinister and thinking too badly of Liao Shi. It was because her plan was full of loopholes. It was clearly a death trap. Chapter 1061. Liao Shi sneered at Qin Yu. "Qin Yu, do you think I'm as stupid as you? Since I've said so, of course I have a way." She took out a bottle and placed it in front of him. The bottle was translucent, and one could faintly see a potion the size of a longan. It was deep red, as if it had been soaked in blood. It emitted faint traces of crimson light, making it seem extremely strange. First, this is the enhanced version of the invincible strength pill that I spent a great deal of effort these past 2 days to refine. I won't explain the specific effects, but after taking it, the effects will be so good that it will make one scream. Liao Shi tossed it to Qin Yu and pointed at him. Second, strictly speaking, you have 2 abyssal bloodlines in your body. It's just that one of them is too thin, so it is in a dormant state. I will help you stimulate it and use the manifestation ability of your bloodline to burn it in a destructive manner to erupt with the strength of this abyssal bloodline for a short period of time. Humph, humph, don't look at me like that. The destructive combustion will indeed cause irreversible damage to the bloodline, but it is in a dormant state to begin with. Even if it is destroyed, it won't cause any real damage to you. Moreover, in order to help you, I will extract the demonic bloodlines of 3 demon commanders and refine them into your body to ignite them at the same time to prolong the time you can last. During this period of time, as long as you can obtain the 1,000 illusion demon mirror, I guarantee you won't die. And once you do as I say and smoothly complete it, that will be an extraordinary matter. At that time, you will know what it means to be unable to appreciate my good intentions." Qin Yu's complexion was cloudy and uncertain. He looked down at the so-called enhanced invincible strength pill in his hand, thoughts racing through his mind. He already understood Liao Shi's meaning, but no matter how much she said, there was one thing that didn't change. If he wanted to live, he would have to rely on himself. If he could defeat the abyssal demon dragon, then he would live. Otherwise, Qin Yu took a deep breath and nodded. "Good, I agree. Liao Shi, you better be certain that what you say isn't wrong." If he wanted to live, he had to put his life on the line. This was a very fair matter. As long as Liao Shi wasn't speaking nonsense, that was fine. But thinking about it, this woman didn't seem to have any reason to harm him. Liao Shi patted his chest, and in an instant his chest rippled with pride. "Those who believe in me will never die, so don't worry." Of the 3 devil commander bloodlines, Yin Hanqin, who had already died, was one. The shadowless demon had brought him back, and the master of Black Marsh City's corpse also had one. As for the 3rd target, Liao Shi had set his sights on He Tiangang, who was currently unconscious and in a very bad condition. In Liao Shi's words, he was already half dead, so he might as well contribute his bloodline to the master-teacher continent. Perhaps he might even be able to find a way out of this predicament. The dead could not speak for themselves, so Yin Hanqin and the bloodline of the master of Blackpool City could be settled with a single sentence. Although He Tiangang was still alive, he was still unconscious. Elder Fox hesitated for a moment before nodding his head in agreement. Although Old Fox did not know why Lu Hu wanted to extract He Tiangong's bloodline, from Old Fox's understanding, it was impossible for the incomparably powerful Lu Hu to covet He Tiangong's bloodline. Furthermore, Sir Lu Hu had already said that there would be reconstruction after destruction. There was nothing to hesitate about. Old Black Dog, Your luck doesn't seem to be very good these days. I hope that this time will be an exception. Otherwise, if you die, don't blame me for making the decision for you." 3 Devil Commander-level demonic bloodlines had been mixed together by Liao Shi using some unknown method and placed in a bottle. It was incomparably viscous, constantly tumbling and bubbling like boiling water. Qin Yu clenched his teeth and drank it. Unexpectedly, when it entered his mouth, it wasn't hot at all. Instead, it was icy cold. But soon after, as it entered his stomach, it was like he had swallowed a ball of fire. It burned fiercely, causing his eyes to turn red and white smoke to rise from his head, as if his entire body would be ignited. Luckily, this feeling only lasted for a short period of time. The burning sensation in his stomach receded like a tide. "Who?" Qin Yu let out a long breath. He looked at Liao Shi and nodded. "It's all right. It's much simpler than I imagined." Liao Shi smiled. That's good. Qin Yu was stunned. He stared at her. "Don't tell me that you don't know what will happen to me after I eat it." Liao Shi dryly laughed. "The facts prove that my skills are very good. Look, after you drank it, nothing happened to you, right? All right. That abyssal demon dragon outside the city hasn't fully recovered yet. Let's take advantage of its illness and take its life. Hurry up and go. I'm tired and need to sleep, so I won't send you off." Then she turned and left. Qin Yu's lips twitched. If he hadn't seen her exhausted appearance after refining the 3 Devil Commander bloodlines, this matter wouldn't have ended here. He had to endure it. Liao Shi's words were correct. While the abyssal demon dragon was injured, the sooner he acted, the greater his chances of success would be. Taking a deep breath, Qin Yu turned and left. Outside the small courtyard, Old Fox and Shadowless Demon had been waiting anxiously. Although they had some guesses in their hearts, as long as Qin Yu didn't act, they couldn't rest easy. After all, this was a matter of life and death. Regardless of whether one was a Devil Commander or not, no one could avoid it. "Mister." Old Fox and Shadowless Demon bowed. Qin Yu nodded. "I will be leaving the city for a bit. I will leave this place to you. If there is an accident, take advantage of this chance to leave with Liao Shi. She will give you an unexpected harvest." As he finished speaking, he turned and walked away. As his feet fell, demonic energy surged, submerging his figure. In the next moment, he vanished from their line of sight. Old Fox and Shadowless Demon's complexions changed. What was the meaning of this? Why did it feel like Sir Wildfire was making arrangements for his funeral? Could there be a new change in the beast tide outside the city? Or was there some danger they hadn't noticed yet? Otherwise, with Mr. Qin's strength and status, why would he say such words? After all, with his status as the Abyssal Walker, it wasn't impossible for him to order the Abyssal Demon Dragon outside the city to leave. As all sorts of thoughts raced through their minds and their faces darkened, the courtyard doors suddenly opened from within. Liao Shi stepped out. As she looked in the direction Qin Yu left, her lips curved up in a faint smile. "Boy, at least you have some conscience." She looked up at Old Fox and Shadowless Demon. She restrained her expression and lightly said, "Come in." For some unknown reason, after Liao Shi's smile disappeared, in the eyes of Old Fox and Shadowless Demon, there was an unfathomable aura about her. At the same time, there was a faint fear in their hearts. As expected, if Liao Shi could follow at Sir Wildfire's side and be valued so highly, how could she be an ordinary demoness without any aura? There was no doubt that Liao Shi was far more extraordinary than they had imagined. It was just that they did not know why Master Liao had invited them in after Sir Lu, who had just left. As their minds raced, Old Fox and Shadowless Demon respectfully bowed and followed Liao Shi into the courtyard. The courtyard doors closed behind them. Outside Giant Deer City, above the Heavenly Moat Canyon, demonic energy flashed in the air and Qin Yu's figure appeared. His existence instantly attracted the attention of countless demon beasts. Their cruel and murderous eyes locked onto him. Roar, roar. With a loud roar, two giant abyssal demon wolves leapt into the air. By relying on their powerful mortal bodies, they rushed into the skies. Their speed was like two bolts of lightning as they opened their mouths and bit down at Chinyu. Demon beasts that had completely lost their minds and were invaded by the aura of the beast tide simply didn't have the ability to think at all. They could only move according to their instincts. They could feel the fresh aura of life coming from Chinyu's body. As long as they ate him, they would be able to increase their strength. Thus, the two abyssal demon wolves attacked. Things were just that simple. But at this time, the two abyssal demon wolves that were baring their fangs and brandishing their claws suddenly emitted panic-stricken howls. It was as if they had suddenly exposed themselves to their natural enemy. Without any hesitation, the two abyssal demon wolves stopped and turned to flee. But it was already too late. Bang, bang. Like balloons that had been casually popped, the bodies of the two abyssal demon wolves directly exploded. Countless pieces of flesh and bones shot out in all directions, bringing with them a putrid stench. If this were normal times, the corpses of demon beasts that died in the beast tide would have been plundered away and become the flesh and blood of other demon beasts. This was because swallowing the flesh and blood of other demon beasts could also increase their strength. But at this time, all the surrounding demon beasts seemed to feel an extremely terrifying aura. Not only did they not move forwards, but they instead turned around and fled away. It was as if an existence that terrified them had appeared in the skies above this heavenly moat canyon. Chinyu was expressionless. He looked up into the distance, his robes fluttering in the wind. A boundless aura broke out from his body, like a giant, invisible millstone that pressed down in all directions. Bang, bang, bang! The panic-stricken demon beasts exploded one at a time. Their flesh and blood rained down like a boundless rain. But unfortunately, Chinyu's attention wasn't on these demon beasts that were dying in large swathes. They had paid with their lives, and their bodies had been crushed to pieces. But none of them had been able to cause the slaughterer to glance at them. This was the sorrow of the weak. At this time, in Chinyu's eyes, there was only that terrifying vortex of demonic energy that shot into the skies. It was incomparably large at the top, and as it went downwards, it constantly shrank like a giant funnel. He could clearly hear the roars of endless demonic energy tumbling in his ears. It was that abyssal demon dragon. It was truly worthy of being the darling of the abyss. It could actually summon an astonishing amount of abyssal demonic energy to heal its wounds. But the good news was that its wounds hadn't healed yet. Chinyu narrowed his eyes. He had appeared here and killed a massive number of demon beasts. This abyssal demon dragon must have sensed him. Just as this thought flashed through his mind, a roar suddenly resounded. Rumble! The ruthless sound waves tumbled in midair like brazenly exploding thunder. Then, in the distant skies, the funnel-shaped vortex of demonic energy began to rapidly move towards him, causing the roars of the demonic energy to become even louder. He could see it. This was the abyssal demon dragon. As expected, it was an extremely terrifying life form. Just by being locked onto by its eyes, Chinyu could feel an invisible restraint pressing down on him from all directions. But what Chinyu didn't know was that when the abyssal demon dragon saw him, its heart shook even more intensely than his own. This was a strong premonition that it couldn't suppress. As long as it killed this demon in front of it, it would obtain a reward from the will of the abyss. As an abyssal demon dragon, it was born to be watched by the will of the abyss. It could naturally tell that this wasn't an illusion, but a powerful urging will that had descended from the heavens. And the only one that could accomplish this was the supreme will of the abyss. Roar! The abyssal demon dragon reared its head back and roared. Its eyes revealed a burning heat and greed, and then an even more intense, killing intent erupted. No matter what, even if it had to pay any price, it had to kill this demon. Chapter 1062. Chinyu's lips twitched and his heart sank. After the abyssal demon dragon saw him, he could clearly feel the brief change in its aura. As he thought, the reason this abyssal demon dragon had appeared in Giant Deer City was because it had come for him and Liao Shi. In other words, the abyssal had truly locked onto them. Liao Shi hadn't lied, although he had already expected this. To truly confirm this point still left Qin Yu's heart chilled. Without giving him time to think, the abyssal demon dragon had already attacked. It swung its tail, crashing down like a mountain. Qin Yu's heart shrank. Without needing to galvanize it, the 3 demon commander level bloodlines within his body erupted like volcanoes. Crackle, crackle. Within his body, the sounds of flesh and blood exploding rang out, connecting together into a single mass. His body suddenly grew. Rumble, rumble. Endless abyssal demonic energy gathered in the air, tumbling above his head. The phantom of a giant appeared from within. An ancient and boundless aura emitted from the giant phantom, as if it had crossed through time and space to arrive from the endless ages. Then there was a heaven-shaking roar. At this moment, the abyssal demon dragon stiffened. Its icy cold eyes suddenly shrank, revealing a trace of fear. It was as if the giant phantom and the demonic energy possessed some sort of aura that could suppress it. Bang! With a loud explosion, Qin Yu was sent flying away. The bones in his arms broke apart, but in the next moment they rapidly grew back. The strength released by the burning 3 demon commander level bloodlines was enough to make him a nearly immortal and indestructible existence before he was completely burnt away. Stabilizing his body, Qin Yu gained an even clearer understanding of the abyssal demon dragon's strength. No wonder he had failed to kill it before. This thing was incomparably terrifying, and this was only an injured abyssal demon dragon that hadn't matured yet. If it were an adult abyssal demon dragon in its peak state, then perhaps a casual smash just now would have smashed him to pieces. Taking a deep breath to steady his mind, Qin Yu took out a bottle and crushed it to pieces. Then he opened his mouth and swallowed it. The enhanced version of the super invincible strength pill tasted like blood, but it wasn't pungent. Rather, it tasted particularly sweet. This caused Qin Yu to have a moment of doubt. Could it be that after becoming a demon, his taste had also changed? But in the next moment, this ridiculous and senseless thought was instantly crushed to pieces by a wild strength and expelled from Qin Yu's mind. His limbs and bones, every inch of his flesh and blood, were all roaring with rage, unleashing boundless power. In this state, Qin Yu even felt that the abyssal demon dragon in front of him was nothing. He could easily kill them with one hand. Unfortunately, this was clearly just a misconception caused by the violent increase in his strength and the impact on his mind. However, when Qin Yu left Giant Deer City and fought the abyssal demon dragon, he didn't rely on these things. Or, to be more precise, the 3 self-combusting demon commander level demonic bloodlines, an enhanced version of the invincible vigor pill, were only to draw out what Qin Yu truly relied on. The heartbeat of the black heart of the abyss in Xiao Chen's chest suddenly soared, and a fiery energy flowed out of it. It was like magma flowing through Qin Yu's blood vessels and into his entire body. Wherever it passed, everything was burned away. Ah! He reared his head back and roared. Intense pain swept over him, instantly shattering Qin Yu's will. His flesh and blood roared. They were incomparably hungry, as if they had been imprisoned for countless years, and now that they had broken free, they wished they could eat the entire world. And their food was the endless demonic energy that filled the abyss and gave birth to countless abyssal life forms. Rumble, rumble. A giant vortex instantly condensed. Then a second funnel-shaped, demonic energy vortex appeared in the world. It was so large that it was more than twice the size of the demonic energy vortex above the abyssal demon dragon's head. A massive amount of abyssal demonic energy wildly poured into Qin Yu's body. His body began to inflate at an astonishing speed. 100 feet, 500 feet, 1,000 feet, 3,000 feet, 10,000 feet, 20,000 feet. Finally, He stopped growing when he reached 30,000 feet. He was like a terrifying giant that supported the heavens and earth. In the demonic energy vortex above his head, the giant phantom had become incomparably solid. It looked down at Qin and roared. Then, like a shadow, it fused into his body. Shua! Qin, who had transformed into a 30,000-foot giant, suddenly opened his eyes. At this moment, lightning roared within them. An incomparably wild strength surged within his body. It was so terrifying that just a tiny bit of it was enough to destroy mountains and break rivers. This wasn't a description, nor was it an exaggeration. Rather, it was a terrifying might that it truly possessed. Looking at the abyssal demon dragon in front of him, Qin truly didn't feel any fear. In fact, he could even clearly feel the fear in the abyssal demon dragon's eyes as it looked at him. And fear was a very normal thing. Qin licked his dry lips, the desire to eat tumbling in his heart. This was because the abyssal titan race, from the day they were born, ate abyssal demon dragons. When the phantom above his head fused into Qin body, he naturally knew everything. Liao Shi had said that the bloodline hidden within his body was the abyssal titan. Of course, it also had another name, the bloodline of the ancient race. The ancients of the world of the living actually had the same bloodline as the titans of the abyss world. To be more precise, the ancients were the descendants of a portion of the titans' bloodline. There was actually such a connection between two completely opposite worlds that were incompatible with each other. Did this mean that there was some unknown and inseparable connection between the two worlds? Qin took a deep breath. Suddenly, there was a rumbling sound between the heavens and earth. This was the sound of endless abyssal demonic energy being sucked into his body. Now wasn't the time to think about these things. He could clearly feel that after the ancient's bloodline was activated, it was crazily burning. That's right, this was the destructive burning that Liao Shi had mentioned before. Once it burned out, he would lose the true body of the abyssal titan that was maintained by the ability of the metamorphosis bloodline. The speed at which the 3 demon commander-level demonic bloodlines burned was simply terrifying. With every breath that passed, they were weakening at a perceptible speed. Even if they were extremely powerful, this burning method couldn't be maintained for too long. Before this happened, he had to take out the supreme treasure of the 9-tailed demon fox clan, the 1,000 illusion demon mirror. He thought about what Liao Shi had said. The 1,000 illusion demon mirror could solidify a demonic state of the wielder. In other words, as long as he obtained it, he could preserve his tyrannical titan true body forever, turning it into a great killing tool in his hands. Qin Yu's breathing quickened. The rumbling of demonic energy became even more intense. He stared at the abyssal demon dragon and licked his lips once more. Now he could somewhat understand what the abyssal demon dragon was thinking when it looked at him. It was probably, "Today, you brat, you absolutely cannot escape. No matter what price I have to pay, I will kill you in a frontal confrontation." Bang! The incarnation of the abyssal titan Qin Yu stepped forwards. The space of the abyss world instantly shattered into countless pieces and cracks, wildly spread out. Every crack released a powerful tearing force. It was the backlash of the abyss itself against the Ravagers. But now, this tearing strength of space couldn't harm Qin Yu's body at all. It had to be known that a titan that could eat the abyssal demon dragon had a terrifying mortal body. Even the claws that the abyssal demon dragon was most proud of couldn't do anything to it. He lifted a hand and punched out. "Roar!" the abyssal demon dragon roared. Its body violently swayed, wanting to shake off this punch. But this punch was far too fast. Moreover, it seemed to instinctively lock onto the demon dragon's aura, making it impossible for it to avoid it. Forced to do so, the abyssal demon wolf roared. It raised its head and soared into the skies, using its hardest dragon horn to heavily collide with this punch. There was a heaven-shaking explosion. It was like an axe from ancient chaos that split apart the heavens and earth. An unimaginably terrifying fluctuation of strength swept out in all directions. Outside Giant Deer City, the seemingly bottomless moat seemed to be grabbed by an invisible giant as it continued to crack apart. The violent vibrations were like layers upon layers of stormy waves, spreading wantonly. Ah, the city walls are collapsing. Heavens, just what is happening? A world-destroying monster has appeared in the beast tide. It's over, it's over. We're all going to die. In Giant Deer City, the demons that were defending against the demon beasts on the city walls all fell down, their faces filled with fear as they screamed. Rumble, a massive section of the city wall, was shattered by a terrifying strength. It crashed to the ground, crushing countless abyssal demons to death. And this was only the part that could be seen. In the huge Jilu city, 7 or 8 sections of the city wall had been destroyed. It could be said that from this moment on, Giant Deer City had been breached. The terrifying beast tide outside the city could rush in at any moment and turn all the demons in the city into their food. But soon, the demons in despair discovered that although Giant Deer City had been breached, the beast tide outside the city seemed to sense something incomparably terrifying. They couldn't care less about the demon feast in front of them as they crazily fled in all directions. No one knew what had happened. But without a doubt, in the distance, there was a massive mass of demonic energy that covered the skies. It was as black as ink, and it was impossible to see through it. It hid the truth. Old Fox and Shadowless Demon flew into the air. Their eyes widened as they looked into the distance at that incomparably massive mass of demonic energy. Their minds were filled with shock. This strength, even though they were separated by an endless distance, still caused them to instinctively tremble in fear. After the two left the small courtyard, the bewildered thoughts in their hearts gradually settled. They looked at each other and could feel each other's thoughts. If what Miss Liao said was true, then this would undoubtedly be the greatest good fortune of their lives. As long as they grasped this opportunity, they could one day become the peak existences in the abyss. But the premise of all of this was that Sir Wildfire could smoothly return on this day. The abyssal demon dragon race wasn't so easy to kill, especially after they learned the truth from Miss Liao. Chapter 1063. The 2 giant vortexes of demonic energy couldn't withstand the fluctuations of strength and were smashed apart, forming a pitch-black curtain that covered everything. Inside, vast and mighty abyssal energy wildly tumbled about. As it rotated, it released a strength that could twist apart all. Cracking sounds filled the air as cracks appeared, covering every corner of the world. Bang! A giant shadow smashed through the layers of demonic energy. Its body was covered in scales, and as it collided with the demonic energy, sparks flew out. The abyssal demon dragon roared in pain. One could clearly see that a portion of its giant horn had been broken off and thick blood seeped out from the fracture. The dragon's horn was far harder than its claws and teeth. It was the toughest part of its body, and also the most crucial part. It was intimately connected to the dragon's heart. Once it was injured, it would experience incomparably painful pain, as if it were cut into pieces. Moreover, what terrified the abyssal demon dragon the most was that it discovered that in a confrontation of absolute strength, it was being firmly suppressed. The abyssal titan, this was the natural enemy of the demon dragon race in the distant past, a terrifying race that had long since vanished in the endless river of time. The abyssal demon dragons desired to destroy Giant Deer City and kill off all the demons to vent its hatred had already vanished. All that was left was fear. Escape it had to escape. Right now, it wasn't this abyssal titan's match. Moreover, the abyssal demon dragon had an intuition that the abyssal titan in front of it wasn't in its true form. Or, to be more precise, Qin Yu couldn't maintain his abyssal titan true form for too long. As long as he could last through this period of time. Once his bloodline was burned away and he lost his titan true form, everything would return to its control. Roar! The abyssal demon dragon roared. Its giant body shook as it tried to flee into the distance. But at this time, there was another deep roar like a thunderclap. Then, a hand like a demon god tore through the abyssal demonic energy and grasped the abyssal demon dragon's tail. "You can escape." With a sudden strength, it grabbed the abyssal demon dragon and violently swung it. Thus, the 10,000-foot-long abyssal demon dragon, with incomparably terrifying strength, was like a whip in the demon god's hand. Pitter-patter, the sound of countless bones breaking came from the abyssal demon dragon's body. Just a simple pull and shake had caused terrible damage to it. As for Chinyu, he didn't need to think at all. He simply followed his instincts and managed to accomplish this. Come to think of it, the Abyss Titans must have hunted demon dragons for food over countless years. It was an instinct that was branded in their bloodline. The abyssal demon dragon struggled in pain. It roared out again and again. Its giant body wrapped around the abyssal titan and began to wildly contract, wanting to tear him apart. At the same time, it opened its mouth and bit down at Chinyu's neck. What welcomed its mouth was the Abyss Titan's other fist, which heavily smashed into the dragon's eye. Immediately, the dragon's scales shattered and blood and flesh flew everywhere. The Abyssal Titan incarnation of Chinyu swept his eyes around and instantly locked onto the Abyssal Demon Dragon's abdomen, where the dragon's head and body connected. Without any reason, it knew that this place was the key to the abyssal, demonic dragon's body. It was highly likely that the 1,000 illusionary demonic mirror was here. The large hand suddenly stretched out, and sharp nails emerged from the tips of the fingers. They were jet black and flashed with a metallic luster. The abyssal demon dragon's eyes revealed a look of panic. It tightened its body around Chinyu's waist, hiding the area below its abdomen. The dragon's head circled around and bit at the abyssal titan's arm. The two terrifying 10,000-foot abyssal life forms began a bloody melee. For a time, roars and roars shook the heavens and earth. Countless scales and flesh flew everywhere. Destructive strength stirred up the abyssal demonic energy, forming something similar to a wild thundercloud. Everything within range suffered a destructive and indiscriminate attack. But in reality, the current battle was still the same. The abyssal demon dragon was at a disadvantage, but the abyssal titan didn't seem affected at all. Instead, because of its injuries, it became even more violent. His fingernails pierced through the abyssal demon dragon's body, tearing open a long wound. Flesh and blood tumbled outwards, and massive amounts of blood rained down. In fact, as killing intent invaded his mind, Chinyu couldn't continue suppressing the desire to eat that came from the abyssal titan bloodline. He was like a true abyssal life form. He opened his mouth and wildly bit down on the abyssal demon dragon, tearing off large chunks of flesh and chewing and swallowing them. A deep fear covered the abyssal demon dragon like black clouds in the horizon. It could feel the shadow of death and despair. After obtaining the 1,000 illusion demon mirror, it had split into 2 avatars and used this to break through the limits of its bloodline, transforming into an abyssal demon dragon. Once it reached adulthood, it would become a terrifying existence comparable to an abyssal king. It would be nearly immortal and enjoy an endless lifespan. After obtaining all of this, how could the abyssal demon dragon be willing to die like this? After a fierce struggle, a crazed look appeared in its eyes. It released the abyssal titan's jaws and emitted strange and deep syllables from deep in its throat. Like a thick drum being struck in the dark night, the deep sound constantly reverberating between the heavens and earth. Roar. The abyssal titan seemed to feel something. It roared and wildly punched the dragon's head. Flesh and blood splashed out as it tried to interrupt the dragon's speech. However, the abyssal demon dragon had clearly made up its mind. No matter how the abyssal titan's fists rained down on it, the ghastly white bones hidden in its open wounds could even be seen clearly. The abyssal demon dragon continued to persevere. Dragon blood flowed into the abyssal demon dragon's eyes, causing them to turn crimson red, revealing endless cruelty and madness. Suddenly, the dragon's voice became high and sharp. The abyssal demon dragon's massive body seemed to be sucked out of all its strength. It became weak and slid down from the abyssal titan's body. But at this time, Qin Yu could feel a terrifying threat looming over him. He couldn't care less about the abyssal demon dragon that had lost the ability to resist. He looked up at the crazily tumbling abyssal demonic energy above his head. Although it was pitch black and he couldn't see anything, he could clearly feel the annihilating aura descending from the heavens. That was a sword. Countless memories gushed into his mind. These memories came from the crazily burning Titan bloodline in Qin Yu's body. The Dragon Abyss sword came from the ancestral land of the abyssal demon dragon race. It was born from the endless Dragon Abyss and was a holy artifact worshipped by the demon dragon race. Any abyssal demon dragon, in a life or death situation, could summon the will of the Dragon Abyss sword to descend and cut down a powerful enemy. Of course, summoning the Dragon Abyss sword itself consumed an astonishing amount of energy. Even an adult abyssal demon dragon would have to pay a tremendous price. As for the abyssal demon dragon outside Giant Deer City, it was only in its newborn state. Its strength was far from enough to summon the Dragon Abyss sword. The reason it was able to succeed today was largely due to luck. Of course, it also needed to pay a heavy enough price. For instance, if the abyssal demon dragon had all its strength sucked out, even a demon general would be able to kill it. Of course, the premise of this was that the demon general had a treasure that could break through the abyssal demon dragon's defenses. Otherwise, even if they attacked for a year, they might not be able to leave a single wound on its body. The Dragon Abyss sword coexisted with the abyssal demon dragon race and had been worshipped by them for 1 trillion years. It had obtained the support of the abyssal demon dragon's will and had already given birth to its own will. The moment it arrived, it could sense the aura of its life or death nemesis, the abyssal titan. Without needing to activate it, it directly pierced out. Bang! At this moment, trillions of abyssal energy exploded. Vast tracts of it evaporated, turning into nothingness. Within the abyssal energy, a straight channel appeared. The Dragon Abyss sword was as fast as light as it shot towards the abyssal titan. An intense threat rose from the depths of his heart. The abyssal titan that Qin Yu had transformed into reared back his head and roared. He reached out a hand and grasped forwards. A tremor spread out from his body, causing the cracked space around him to no longer be able to withstand it. With a loud explosion, space completely disintegrated. Then, after space collapsed, an incomparably massive black armor slowly appeared in the pitch-black nothingness. It fell directly onto Qin Yu's body. At the same time, the phantom of a giant black spear appeared. As the abyssal titan clenched its fist, it rapidly condensed. The ancient race had 3 saint mountains, and each of them worshipped a divine artifact. As for the ancient race, their bloodline originated from the abyssal titan. It could naturally summon them. Or it could be said that what the abyssal titan summoned was the true battle armor and spear. Infinite battle armor. Nirvanic dragon sweeping spear. At this time, the abyssal titan donned the infinite battle armor and grasped the Nirvanic dragon sweeping spear. He could immediately feel the excitement of these 2 treasures that had lain dormant for countless years. Boundless fighting spirit erupted from the depths of his heart, impacting his bloodthirsty heart. Qin Yu reared his head back and roared. Without hesitation, he lifted his hand and thrust out the Nirvanic dragon sweeping spear. In the next moment, the curtain of black skies that covered everything shattered. Behind the evaporated abyssal energy, the Dragon Abyss sword stabbed out. Whether it was the Nirvanic dragon sweeping spear or the Dragon Abyss sword, they were both born from the abyss and were pure black. At this time, they were like 2 bolts of black lightning, one above and one below. They collided with each other with unimaginable momentum. The spear point and sword point collided. An unimaginably terrifying strength erupted from this point, sweeping out in all directions. The berserk energy shattered the 2 demonic chi vortexes. splitting the pitch-black sky curtain they had formed into two. Whether it was the upper half or the lower half, they tumbled about and rapidly collapsed. Thus, the countless demons in Giant Deer City saw everything that was hidden within the endless mass of demonic energy. Two terrifying figures appeared in their eyes. Just a single glance caused the hearts of these demons to nearly stop beating. Abyssal Demon Dragon. That was an abyssal demon dragon. As a terrifying creature that stood at the top of the food chain in the abyss, it possessed an incomparably resounding reputation and was feared by nearly all abyssal races. But now, this incomparably powerful abyssal demon dragon was covered in cuts and bruises. Its 10,000-foot-long body could only barely float in the air. One could clearly see the wounds on the surface of the demon dragon's body, as well as the traces of flesh and blood being torn apart from being bitten. Thus, after a brief period of blankness, all eyes turned to the terrifying figure that supported the heavens and the earth nearly 30,000 feet away. Countless demons groaned in pain in their hearts. They simply didn't dare to imagine that such a terrifying existence existed in the abyss. Chapter 1064. At this time, the giant's black armor seemed to have withstood a terrifying baptism. It had broken in many places, and its exposed flesh was torn open with countless wounds. It could be said that there was not a single part of the giant's body that was unharmed. But even with such serious injuries, he could not lower his head. The giant's back was still straight. He was like a towering mountain that pierced into the heavens, standing between the heavens and earth. No matter how the storm struck him, he would not bend in the slightest. Roar! A roar came from the giant's mouth. A terrifying sound spread into everyone's ears. In Giant Deer City, the weaker demons all vomited blood from their noses and mouths. Some of them even fainted on the spot. The will projection of the dragon abyss sword shattered and dissipated. Qin Yu's dragon sweeping spear also broke in half. But in this battle, he still obtained the final victory. The giant eyes locked onto the abyssal demon dragon. This terrifying creature that stood at the top of the food chain in the abyss emitted a panicked roar and struggled to escape. But summoning the dragon abyss sword had nearly exhausted all of its strength. The abyssal titan strode forwards. As the demon dragon roared, its fear became even stronger. But it couldn't change the outcome it was about to face. A terrifying hand grabbed the abyssal demon dragon. Another hand thrust into its body. As the abyssal demon dragon crazily roared and struggled, a giant meatball was pulled out from its body. This meatball was translucent. One could faintly see that there was a mirror made of some unknown material tightly wrapped inside. Thousand Illusion Demon Mirror. This was the Thousand Illusion Demon Mirror. Qin Yu was overjoyed. Then he felt a wave of weakness erupt from his body like a black hole, crazily swallowing up his strength. The Titan bloodline and the 3 Demon Commander level demon bloodlines were about to be burned out. In order to defeat the Dragon Abyss Sword and summon the Myriad Battle Armor and the Nirvanic Dragon Sweeping Spear, he had consumed far too much strength. He flipped his hand over his chest and used his fingernail to cut open a long hole. Then he stuffed the meatball wrapped around the Thousand Illusion Demon Mirror into it. In the next moment, the abyssal titan that Qin Yu had transformed into let out a roar. He grabbed the abyssal demon dragon with both hands and erupted with the last of his strength, tearing outwards. Thus, a horrifying scene appeared. The abyssal demon dragon, which was more than 10,000 feet long, was directly torn in half from the middle with a scalp-numbing sound of flesh and bones breaking. The abyssal demon dragon, whose body had been cut in half, did not die. It howled in pain and twisted its body frantically. But at this moment, the abyssal titan could no longer wait. It grabbed the lower half of its body with one hand and brought it to its mouth, tearing and chewing it. Scarlet blood spurted out from the corner of his mouth. As he swallowed, the abyssal demon dragon's flesh and blood that he ate directly transformed into a powerful force that continued to maintain the existence of his titan true form. All of Jilu City was dead silent at this moment. It was as if a finger with infinite power had pressed the pause button in this abyss world. All the abyss devils were staring with wide eyes at what was happening outside the city, at the sky above the natural moat that had expanded a lot. An extremely powerful and legendary abyssal demon dragon was torn in half by the hands of an even more terrifying giant. And now, before the abyssal demon dragon died, this giant was crazily devouring it in half. If they had not seen this with their own eyes, they would never have believed what they were seeing, even if their heads were cut off. Abyssal demon dragon. That was an abyssal demon dragon, the beloved of the abyss. It was born with terrifying strength, and when it matured, it could rival peak abyssal kings. But now, in front of this giant, it had been reduced to being torn apart as food. This contrast was too great, so great that all the demons in Jilu City could not accept this. But no matter how unacceptable it was, when it really happened in front of them, they had to force themselves to accept it bit by bit. Finally, some demons recovered from this crazy scene. Their minds began to turn, and they recalled some ancient legends. It was said that countless years ago, when the abyss was just born, many terrifying creatures were born. The abyssal demon dragon was only one of them, and it was not the strongest. This was because there was a type of giant that was born 1,000 feet tall. When they matured, they could easily break through 10,000 feet. They had infinite strength and could support the heavens and earth. Its name was Abyssal Titan, and it loved to eat the flesh of demon dragons. It hunted abyssal demon dragons for a living, and it was the natural enemy of the demon dragon race. After countless years, due to some unknown reason, the abyssal titans gradually withered and finally disappeared from the abyss world. Abyss Titan. It's the legendary extinct Abyss Titan. How is this possible? It's actually this kind of terrifying, mythical creature. It's no wonder that even the powerful abyssal demonic dragon can only be reduced to food. It's actually an abyssal titan. Exclamations rose and fell in Jilu City. The eyes of all the demons were filled with endless respect. Old Fox and Shadowless Demon trembled slightly. At this moment, they no longer doubted the truth that Miss Liao had told them. So Sir Lu Hua really was from the purest ancient bloodline. Now he had descended once more into the abyss because he was carrying a supreme mission. He was going to ascend to the peak of the abyss and attain supremacy. This path was incomparably difficult and dangerous. The test from the abyss could completely destroy him at any time. But it was precisely because of this that external forces were needed to help Sir Lu Hua pass the test of the will of the abyss. They took a deep breath. Old Fox and Shadowless Demon's eyes lit up. This was because they were the ones chosen by Miss Liao. They were the ones who would follow Sir Lu Hua and overcome all obstacles along the way. Perhaps there would be dangers. Perhaps there would be death. But this would become the greatest glory of their lives. And once they succeeded, they would live eternally with the abyss. They would even bring the bloodline of their entire race to unimaginable heights. For this, they were willing to give up everything. In a small courtyard, the pale-faced Liao Shi revealed a faint smile. She had succeeded. She knew that with Qin Yu's luck, he wouldn't be killed so easily. That's right, before everything began, Liao Shi didn't have absolute confidence. Although the abyssal titan race was the natural enemy of the demon dragons, this didn't mean that the strength of the titan race could completely restrain the abyssal demonic dragons. A long time ago, when the abyss first appeared, the titan race and the demon dragon race were born. Because of their unique tastes, the two races were like fire and water. The number of abyssal demonic dragons that died in the mouths of the abyssal titans was innumerable. But there were also many abyssal titans that lost their lives because of their greed. Of course, there was no need to say all this now. Qin Yu had succeeded. Now, it was time for her to make her appearance. Liao Shi stood up and looked outside Jilu City. Her eyes were calm, and an indifferent light flowed in them. She naturally exuded an aura that made others feel awe and respect. She didn't need any power. She just stood there, and she naturally became the center of the world. Everything had to bow their heads to show their respect for her. Although the will of the abyss didn't have a brain, it was still very good at pestering people. Liao Shi narrowed her eyes, and her indifferent aura became even stronger. She already knew that she couldn't avoid it, but at least she could finish her arrangements before disappearing. With the demon dragon's flesh and blood to replenish his strength, Qin Yu could maintain his Titan true body. He could clearly feel that the 1,000-illusion demonic mirror in his flesh and blood had finished recognizing him as its master. As expected, Liao Shi was right. After obtaining Mayanya's blood, she really did break the restriction that only the 9-tailed demon fox race could truly control the 1,000-illusion demonic mirror. Because at this moment, Qin Yu could clearly feel that the crazily burning Titan bloodline in his body, which was about to completely dissipate, had fallen into a state of absolute stillness. This stillness came from the 1,000-illusion demonic mirror. As long as this power didn't dissipate, he could forever maintain his Titan true body. Of course, this didn't mean that Qin Yu could summon the Titan true body without fear. Although it didn't consume his bloodline, it still needed the 1,000-illusion demonic mirror's power to maintain it. Once the 1,000-illusion demonic mirror's power was exhausted, the Titan true body would automatically disappear, and it would enter a state of stillness until the 1,000-illusion demonic mirror's power was completely replenished. Only then could it be summoned again. Qin Yu silently calculated that the complete power of the 1,000-illusion demonic mirror could maintain the Titan true body for about an hour. After it was exhausted, it would take at least a month to replenish it. Every month, he could only use it for an hour. Although it seemed pitifully short, Qin Yu was already very satisfied. In the Titan true body state, he was confident that he could even face an abyssal demon king for a while. If he threw it out in a battle, it would be a sure kill move. Besides an abyssal demon king, it could crush anyone. If he wasn't satisfied with this super trump card that could be used repeatedly, then he would be too greedy. Liao Shi, this woman had really given Qin Yu a big gift, even though he had risked his life to obtain the 1,000-illusion demonic mirror. The entire process seemed to have been extremely smooth. He had beaten the abyssal demon dragon all the way, and he had even eaten it. But in reality, it had been extremely dangerous. Just a little bit more, and his Titan true body bloodline would have been completely exhausted. If this had happened just a little bit earlier, then perhaps the current situation would have been completely different. The beast tied outside Giant Deer City had been scared off by the battle between him and the abyssal demon dragon, and could no longer pose a threat. As for the abyssal demon dragon, it had become its current form. The food in the abyssal demon dragon's stomach was replenishing his power. In that case, he should have survived the attack from the will of the abyss, right? Just as this thought flashed through Qin Yu's mind, an extremely angry dragon roar suddenly resounded between heaven and earth. Rumble, rumble, rumble. In an instant, endless abyssal demon energy was summoned, condensing into a huge wave and brazenly smashed in all directions. With a loud bang, the abyssal demon dragon that Qin Yu had transformed into was sent flying away like a mountain. Space shattered, and the dark void formed a giant hole. A suffocatingly large abyssal demon dragon slowly flew out from it. If the abyssal demon dragon that Qin Yu had killed had an incomparably terrifying aura, then compared to this abyssal demon dragon, it was like comparing a baby to an adult. It had only descended here, and without doing anything, but its aura had stirred up the abyssal demon dragon that had sent Qin Yu flying just now. As more and more abyssal demon dragon appeared here, the air rapidly became viscous. Breathing became incomparably difficult, as if it would freeze in the next moment. Finally, the entire abyssal demon dragon flew out of the black hole. It lay between the heavens and earth like an endless mountain range. It was at least 100,000 feet long. As its body slowly moved, the dragon scales that covered its surface collided with each other like blades of armor, emitting cold, metallic sounds. Abyssal titans all deserve to die, The 100,000-foot abyssal demon dragon roared, accompanied by a cold and berserk, killing intent. Every syllable was like a thunderclap, madly exploding between the heavens and earth. Chapter 1065. Chinyu, who had transformed into an abyssal titan, revealed a bitter look. Was this the true trump card of the abyssal will? Or could it be said that the abyssal will would never stop until he and Liaoshe were killed? This was unsolvable. Besides death, there was only death. It wouldn't give them the slightest chance to live. The so-called flow of the heavenly Tao always left a sliver of hope. This saying simply didn't make sense in the abyss. It wasn't that Chinyu was too pessimistic or that he had no confidence in himself, but that the abyssal demon dragon he faced right now was terrifyingly strong. Abyssal titans hunted demon dragons and ate their flesh and blood to survive. Perhaps when they were equal in strength or slightly weaker, they would have a slight advantage. But if the difference in strength was too great, then the hunting parties would have to switch positions, just like the current situation. 100,000 feet long, this abyssal demon dragon was in its peak condition. And according to the common concept of abyssal creatures, the larger the body, the stronger it was. Its true strength far surpassed that of ordinary abyssal kings. How could they fight? How could they fight for their lives? In Julu City, almost half of the demons in the city fell unconscious after being struck by the 100,000-foot demon dragon's aura. At this time, only a small portion of them remained conscious. These were the strongest demons. Even so, their faces were pale and their eyes were filled with fear. Today, their horizons had truly been broadened. Terrifying creatures appeared one after another. First was an abyssal demon dragon that was torn in half and swallowed by the abyssal titan. Then, in the blink of an eye, a 100,000-foot-long abyssal demon dragon that was clearly at the demon beast king level had instantly suppressed the abyssal titan. What? Both sides hadn't even fought yet. So how could they see that the abyssal titan had been suppressed? Nonsense. Was there even a need to say anything? This demon dragon's body was 100,000 feet long, and when it descended, it stirred up waves of demonic energy that sent the abyssal titan flying away. There was nothing to say about this obvious difference in strength. Old Fox and Shadowless Demon froze. With their strength, their fates were only slightly better than the other demons, and their faces weren't so pale. Now, their eyes widened in shock, and they subconsciously gulped. Could this be the true test from the abyss that Miss Liaoshe had mentioned? Wasn't this a little too strong? They admitted that Lord Flowing Fire, who possessed the bloodline of the Abyss Titans, could be said to stand at the peak below the Abyss Kings. In fact, they might even be able to escape from the Abyssal Kings. However, the difference in strength between them and this dragon that was clearly at least at the level of an abyssal demon dragon elder was simply too great. It was so great that they couldn't see any possibility of survival. Faced with such a situation, the two of them could only hide as far as they could. They did not dare to approach at all, let alone help. Just when Old Fox and Shadowless Demon were in a state of panic and fear, the courtyard door opened with a GS sound and Liaoshe walked out. She swept her gaze around and landed on Elder Fox. She thought for a moment and said, "Show your true form and send me out of the city." At this moment, being shrouded by her gaze, Old Fox instinctively felt great reverence and fear. He couldn't even think of resisting. With a flash of demonic light, a demonic fox that was several zhang in size appeared before Zhang Xian's eyes. It bowed respectfully to Liaoshe. Climbing onto the demonic fox's back, Liaoshe took a few deep breaths and patted it. "Let's go." The demonic fox's body moved, and it leapt into the air. Demonic energy condensed in the air, wrapping around its body and forming a barrier. Then its four limbs moved, and it quickly rushed out of the city. The demonic dragon's ice-cold eyes locked onto the abyssal titan. Ruthless killing intent surged within his eyes. It had sensed the will of the dragon abyss sword, which was why it had shattered the void of the abyss and directly descended upon Julu City. But it was still a step too late. The demonic dragon could smell the scent of the demonic dragon's blood that had yet to dissipate in the air. There was a trace of impurities in the immaturity. It was clear that this was a little fellow with the demonic dragon's bloodline that had luckily evolved into a dragon's body. As long as it entered the demon-dragon ancestral land and borrowed the power of the dragon abyss, it would be able to wash away the impurities in its body and make its bloodline perfect. These juniors that evolved into demonic dragons through self-transformation often had even more outstanding aptitudes. As long as they were given enough time, they could grow into outstanding figures of the demonic dragon race, adding to the strength of their race. But now, this little fellow that had just evolved into a dragon had clearly fallen prey to the evil hands of this abyss titan and been swallowed up. Thinking of this, the demonic dragon's eyes became even colder. Then, the temperature in this part of the abyssal world began to rapidly fall. Kacha! Kacha! Chin, you could clearly hear the sound of water freezing. An extremely cold aura flowed through his pores, constantly eroding into his body. Even with the Abyss Titan's formidable defensive abilities, beneath the corrosion of this cold aura, it felt as if its heartbeat would stop and its blood would freeze. Was this the true strength of the demonic dragon race's powerhouses? It was truly incomparably terrifying. Then he should be torn to shreds by this Abyss Titan. A trace of fear flashed in Qin Yu's eyes. This was a normal reaction that any living being would have when facing death. Perhaps it was because of some formidable will, mission, or belief that some people or other living beings could face death with equanimity. But in the moment of death, they would all feel fear. This was the instinct that all living beings had toward survival. No one was an exception. But soon, the fear in Qin Yu's eyes was covered up by a ruthless madness. Even if he was doomed to die, he absolutely couldn't just wait for death to come. He couldn't wait for death to come. No matter what time it was in his life, it was absolutely impossible. The 100,000-foot demonic dragon was terrifying, but even if he risked his life, he had to tear off a piece of flesh from its body. Even if he couldn't tear off its flesh, breaking off a scale was a good result. In short, he couldn't just die like this without paying a price. Within his chest, the heart of the abyss fiercely beat. The terrifying strength that belonged to the Abyss Titan wildly vibrated within his body. Kacha! Kacha! The icy cold strength that wanted to freeze Qin Yu collapsed inch by inch. The 100,000-foot demonic dragon's eyes flashed with surprise, as if it hadn't thought that Qin Yu would still have the courage to resist. But soon it sneered. If having the courage to go all out could reverse the situation, then what was the point of having strength? At most, it would just be a bit of a waste of time. The 100,000-foot demonic dragon opened its mouth, revealing fierce fangs. A deep blue light gathered in its throat. Demonic dragon's breath. Strictly speaking, this was one of the strongest methods of the demon dragon race. The reason that the abyssal demon dragon that Qin Yu had killed in his titan form hadn't used its breath was because it had attacked to vent its anger, causing damage that it still hadn't recovered from. Otherwise, if Qin Yu wanted to kill it, he would have needed to expend a bit more effort. If one considered that Qin Yu's Abyss Titan bloodline would have been burned away and he wouldn't have been able to maintain his Titan true form. Thinking of this, the abyssal demon dragon that had been eaten had died an unjust death. Moreover, it had brought its own death upon itself. The deep blue light became increasingly bright, like a fire quietly burning beneath ice. It didn't seem hot, but it possessed the strength to destroy all. If the dragon's breath truly descended, then even if Qin Yu was in his Abyss Titan true form, he would still be incinerated into nothingness in an instant. His soul and body would vanish without a trace. But at this time, the 100,000-foot demonic dragon's eyes fiercely shrank, as if it had felt some great threat. It fiercely turned its head, its dragon eyes stubbornly locking onto Julu City. In its line of sight, an extremely weak white fox was flying over, riding on demonic energy. What gave it this feeling of danger was clearly not this white fox that wasn't even enough to fill the gaps between its teeth. But the dangerous aura was indeed coming from its body. Then a white and delicate hand reached out and pushed aside the white fox's long fur. She said with dissatisfaction, "Fox, your fur is too long. You really need to cut it." Liao Shi revealed her face and looked up at the 100,000-foot demonic dragon. Her lips curved up in a smile and she waved at it. "Big fellow, this is the first time we've met. Hello." There was no way to describe the mood of the demon dragon race's elder arcane dragon. He didn't feel the least bit of aura from this woman in front of him. She was so weak that she was like an ant that wasn't even worth mentioning. Such a small thing could kill tens of thousands of people with just a glance, let alone a single breath. But for some unknown reason, when Elder Arcane Dragon faced Liao Shi, he felt a deep sense of fear and dread. In fact, he even had a strange feeling, as if an extremely sharp, bone-scraping knife was placed between his eyebrows. If he dared to show the slightest bit of disrespect or make any other movements, he would be pierced through, an icy cold feeling seeping into his heart. Just who was this woman? Why did she give him such a terrifying feeling? It had to be known that as an elder of the demon dragon race, Arcane Dragon's strength had nearly reached the peak of the abyss. In his race, there were only a few powerful ancient demon dragons, including the patriarch and several extremely talented kings of the demon race. He had nothing to fear, even someone as powerful as him. Facing this woman who had no aura at all, he actually felt the threat of death that he hadn't felt in a long time. This was simply a joke. But now, Elder Arcane Dragon couldn't bring himself to laugh at all. He slowly closed his mouth and retracted the dragon breath that was about to erupt. He looked at Liao Shi with a solemn expression and lowered his head in the etiquette of the demon dragon race. Demon dragon race Elder Arcane Dragon greets the miss. Liao Shi nodded. Elder Arcane Dragon is truly a very polite person. I feel relieved. She blinked and pointed a finger at Qinyu. Can you release this boy first, and then we can have a good talk? Don't worry, this is a good thing for you. Elder Arcane Dragon hesitated for a moment. Then he retracted his strength that imprisoned Qinyu. He immediately put away his tightened true body and flashed to Liao Shi's side. He gave Qinyu a look that said, "Don't talk too much." Then Liao Shi gestured. Elder Arcane Dragon, please follow me back to my dwelling. However, you should change your appearance first. This state isn't too convenient. Chapter 1066. Demonic energy flashed, and the 100,000-foot demon dragon vanished from sight. Elder Alpha transformed into a middle-aged demon around 40 years old. He wore loose black robes and had a graceful bearing. That's also good. I also want to know what the miss wishes to discuss with me. Liao Shi didn't speak further. He patted the white fox beneath him and beckoned to Qinyu. Let's go. Thus, all of the awake demons in Jilu City widened their eyes in horror. They watched helplessly as a terrifying 100,000-foot demon dragon transformed into human form and swaggered in. They didn't know what was happening, but without a doubt, if this terrifying demon dragon was angered, all it needed to do was reveal its true form and roll around a few times, and all of Jilu City would be turned to dust. They would naturally be crushed to pieces and die a deader death. Shadowless Demon believed that he had seen many great scenes in his life and experienced many dangers and tribulations. Even so, his mouth was still dry and his throat felt like it was stuffed with straw. He couldn't make a single sound. Although the middle-aged Elder Arcane Dharma had done his best to restrain his aura, he still felt like a towering mountain that was still moving in Lin Ming's perception. At most, he could only be considered an unremarkable ant crawling at the foot of the mountain. Liao Shi jumped off the white fox. He stumbled and nearly fell to the ground. Qinyu pulled him up and patted his head. It's been too noisy outside the city recently, and I haven't had a good rest. I apologize for making Elder Alpha laugh. Please come in. Elder Alpha's lips twitched. With his eyesight, he certainly wouldn't be mistaken. This woman really was weak just now and had nearly fallen over. But it was this sickly-looking woman who couldn't even stand steadily, who gave him a feeling of extreme danger. Moreover, he really didn't dare to do anything. As the two of them met, he could faintly feel that she was in a position where she controlled the initiative. This was really strange. His thoughts raced several times. Elder Alpha smiled and nodded. He followed Liao Shi into the small courtyard and swept his eyes around. Luckily, he didn't sense anything wrong. It seemed that she really was prepared to have a good talk with him. Elder Alpha's eyes flashed for a moment before he composed himself. "Qinyu, wait outside for a moment. I have some matters to discuss with Elder Alpha in private." Qinyu glanced at her and slowly nodded. "All right." With a creak, the courtyard door closed from the inside, isolating all senses from the inside and outside. He took a deep breath and slowly exhaled. As he looked at the tightly shut courtyard doors, his eyes were cloudy and uncertain. As he had expected, Liao Shi was not as simple as he seemed on the surface. Even a dignified elder of the Devil Dragon clan was suppressed in front of her. Just where did this woman come from? Furthermore, now that she had avoided everyone, what was she talking about with Elder Arcane Mage? Qin, you didn't think it was likely that someone would harm him. But he didn't like this sort of unknown. Forget it. I can only let Liao Shi take control of the situation now. I'll find a way to ask her about the details in the future. In the small courtyard, the atmosphere was calm and tranquil. Liao Shi walked over to Qinyu and sat down where he usually sat. He gestured with his hand and said, "Elder Mysterious Law, please." Aofa came over and sat down. He slowly said, "May I know where Miss comes from? My demonic dragon race can be considered experienced and knowledgeable, but I have never met someone as outstanding as Mississippi Liao Shi yawned. He didn't seem to be in a good mood, and his voice was a bit slurred. There is no need to probe. Moreover, my origins aren't important at all." She waved her hand and forcefully changed the topic. "You appeared in Giant Deer City, and even saw me. Don't you feel anything?" Arcane Mage's expression didn't change. "I don't understand what Miss means." Liao Shi curled his lips. "You old fellows who have lived for far too long just like to hide your thoughts. Since I directly pointed it out, I naturally have confidence in myself. Elder Mysterious Law, it would be best if we could be honest and not waste each other's time. What do you think?" Arcane Mage was silent for several breaths of time. Then he slowly nodded. "Miss is right. When I first saw you, I indeed had a strong feeling that if I could kill you, I would be able to obtain a great harvest." Liao Shi yawned again. "In truth, you can speak more bluntly." Arcane Mage had a solemn expression. Cryptic fluctuations appeared in the depths of his eyes. "I can feel traces of the will of the abyss locking onto you." Snapping his fingers, Liao Shi smiled. "That's right, just like that. I say, as a dignified elder of the demon dragon race and a formidable existence that has obtained the recognition of the abyss, if you can't even sense something like this, then you are far too weak." Rubbing his temples, Liao Shi raised his spirits and continued, "I have a question. Since Elder Mysterious Law sensed the will of the abyss locking onto you, why didn't you attack me? You should know that as long as you kill me, the will of the abyss will give you a great reward." Arcane Mage shook his head. "We abyssal demon dragons, although we are proud of our bloodline and arrogant in our actions, we do not lack intelligence. The will of the abyss has locked onto Miss, but hasn't directly attacked you. This in itself is the greatest warning to me. So how could I possibly dare to attack Miss? Hee, talking to a clever dragon is always a waste of energy." Liao Shi snapped his fingers once more. "Thus, you don't dare to lay a finger on me, but you want to lay a finger on me. Furthermore, I can give you a chance to lay a finger on me without even lifting a finger. It may sound complicated, but do you understand what I mean?" Arcane Mage nodded. "I understand what Miss means. Then what do you need me to do? It's very simple. After I disappear, the demon dragon race will no longer be able to hunt down that boy outside. Don't try to play dumb with me. You and I both know who I am talking about. Liao Shi's lips curled up. Of course, this is only the first condition. After all, my value is extremely high and I cannot be sold cheaply. Arcane Mage's expression was calm. Of course, this is only a small matter. The Abyssal Titan race has already been destroyed and part of their bloodline has been spread outside. It cannot affect the demon dragon race in the slightest. Very well. Then I will state my second condition. Liao Shi thought for a moment and then continued, because of a certain reason that I cannot tell you, I promise to guarantee that this boy will live well in the abyss. However, he was truly a restless person. His ability to attract trouble was top-notch. So, the second condition is to give him a keepsake of you that can summon you at a time of crisis. Arcane Mage frowned. He thought for several breaths of time and slowly said, I can agree. But as Miss said, if the trouble this person provokes is too great, so great that it will threaten my safety, then I have the right to refuse. Liao Shi chuckled. No, Elder Arcane Mage, it seems that you still don't understand the current situation. I am only telling you my conditions. In truth, I am not giving you a chance to bargain. Of course, you can also choose to refuse, because I am confident that I will be able to find other partners to cooperate with. These words were impolite and directly swept away his face. But Arcane Mage wasn't angered. His frown deepened and he thought for several breaths of time. Fine, I agree. Liao Shi stretched out a finger. Don't be afraid. The third condition is also my final condition. I won't make things too difficult for you. Arcane Mage's heart twitched. If it weren't for the fact that he heard those tough words just now, he might have really believed them. Miss, please speak. In the future, perhaps that boy Qin will rush into some places he shouldn't have because of certain matters. Of course, this is only my guess, and it might not happen. But if such a day really comes, what I want you to do is to turn a blind eye to it. You don't need to help him, but you also can attack him. Arcane Mage had an awkward expression. If he wants to rush into my demon dragon race's ancestral lands, Liao Shi waved his hand. Don't worry. I can guarantee you that it will have absolutely nothing to do with your demon dragon race's ancestral lands. Arcane Mage nodded. No problem. Liao Shi reached out a hand. Then, let's have a pleasant cooperation. Arcane Mage hesitated for a moment. Then, he reached out a hand to shake hers. The moment their palms touched, his body stiffened. It was like he had sensed something incomparably terrifying. Letting go of his hand, Liao Shi smiled innocently. I believe that Elder Arcane Mage will keep his word, right? Alpha obviously swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Of course. Don't worry, Mississippi. I will definitely keep my promise. His voice trembled and there was a flicker in his eyes. It was clear that this elder of the demon dragon race had been frightened. Liao Shi's smile brightened. Very good. Then I won't keep Elder Arcane Mage any longer. Come back in 10 days, and I will give you an explanation. Arcane Mage stood up and bid his farewells. He pushed open the door and left the courtyard. His eyes swept around and locked onto Qin Yu not too far away. He stepped forwards and lifted his palm. Demonic light surged in his palm and a knuckle-sized piece of black jade appeared. Keep this. In the future, no matter when, you can summon me once. After handing the jade to Qin Yu, Arcane Mage didn't stay any longer. He stepped forwards and vanished from sight. In the courtyard, Liao Shi's voice sounded out. Qin Yu, hurry in. Let me examine your current condition. As Qin Yu entered, Liao Shi's eyes shined as if she had seen a treasure. She couldn't help but reach out a hand and carefully stroke Qin Yu's body. Abyssal Titan, a living Abyssal Titan. Although your bloodline isn't pure, you are still a living fossil of the abyss. Come. Hurry up and accompany me. Let's do some interesting experiments. I want to see just what secrets the abyssal Titan bloodline is hiding. Qin Yu stood where he was without expression, looking at her without a single word. After waiting for a moment, seeing that Qin Yu didn't move, Liao Shi glared at him once, twice, thrice, perhaps sensing Qin Yu's determination. She revealed a helpless expression. In truth, there really isn't much to say. If you really want to know, then wait 10 days. Qin Yu frowned. Why do I have to wait 10 days? Liao Shi, are you hiding something from me? Liao Shi humphed. Even an elder of the abyssal demon dragon race has to put up with grievances in front of me. So how dare you try to bargain with me? I said 10 days, so it's 10 days. If you continue to nag, I might change my mind. All right, 10 days is 10 days. At that time, you must tell me everything. Qin Yu took a deep breath and said. Liao Shi beamed with joy. All right, we'll do as you say. She grabbed Qin Yu and rushed into the room. Quick, quick, take off your clothes and lie down. Chapter 1067. Qin Yu. No matter how he heard it, it didn't feel right. At the entrance of the small courtyard, Old Fox and Shadowless Demon, who were waiting for orders, suddenly stiffened. Cold sweat dripped down their foreheads. The heavens and earth could prove that they didn't do it on purpose. After hearing those words, they wouldn't be silenced, right? After carefully closing the courtyard door, Old Fox and Shadowless Demon let out a long breath. They ordered their subordinates to leave, and they also moved a distance away. Who knew what would happen in the courtyard next? It was best to stay far away so that they wouldn't get themselves killed. After all, even the elder of the demon dragon tribe had been captured by the man and woman in the courtyard. If they wanted to crush them, it would be a piece of cake. Enduring the discomfort in his body, Qin Yu gritted his teeth and cooperated with Liao Shi. He completed her series of strange requests and then hurriedly escaped. It wasn't that Liao Shi's requests were too excessive or that the process was too painful that it was hard to accept. For example, forget it. There was no need for examples. In short, it was just some things that made him feel uncomfortable. In the next 2 days, Liao Shi began to refine the potions in a crazed state of infatuation. Who knew what she was doing? Qin Yu was happy to relax. Moreover, he could use this time to adapt to the changes in his body. The only bad thing was that Myanya had already woken up. He didn't know what Liao Shi had fed her, but her injuries had healed very well. At the very least, her daily movements weren't affected. Her resentful eyes had been glued to Qin Yu the moment she saw him, and she couldn't take them off. Thousand Illusion Demon Mirror. Their 9-tailed demon fox tribe. A treasure that had been passed down for countless years. Something that represented the hope of the entire tribe. Just like that, he had taken it. He didn't steal it, nor did he suppress it. He had truly obtained the approval of the 1,000 Illusion Demon Mirror. In other words, unless Qin Yu was willing to return the 1,000 Illusion Demon Mirror to the 9-tailed demon fox tribe, they would lose this treasure forever. Thinking of this, the resentment in Myanya's eyes became even stronger, because even if she thought with her knees, she knew that the fat that had been eaten by someone else could never be taken out. In fact, Myanya wasn't wrong. Because of the power of the 1,000 Illusion Demon Mirror, Qin Yu was able to solidify the power of the Titan True Body. Putting aside everything else, just this point alone was enough for him to thicken his face and pretend that he didn't notice her gaze at all. As Qin Yu was enduring Myanya's complaints and carefully exploring the strength of the 1,000 Illusion Demon Mirror, Old Fox's visit broke the peace. He had no choice but to come. After all, Liao Shi had extracted the bloodline of the black heavenly energy in his body, and it was already on the verge of collapse. Lu Hua, Sir Qin Yu, He Tiangang is on the verge of death. If it's possible, I hope that you or Miss Liao Shi can save him. I can guarantee you that if He Tiangang doesn't die, he will definitely become a very strong force by your side. Qin Yu lifted a hand and slapped between his eyebrows. It was a bit embarrassing, but after he returned to Giant Deer City, he had completely forgotten about this matter. Knocking on the door of Liao Shi's room, Zhang Xian saw that her face was pale from lack of rest, her eyes slightly reddened, and her slightly dazed expression. Just like him, he knew that this woman had also forgotten about He Tiangang. With a light cough, Qin Yu pulled her over and quietly explained the situation to her. Liao Shi lifted a hand and slapped between her eyebrows. I forgot, but it doesn't matter. Send him over. I guarantee that he won't die. As she spoke, her eyes fell on Qin Yu. No matter how he looked at it, he felt as if she had ill intentions. Qin Yu took a step back. Hey, what do you want to do? Liao Shi brightly smiled. Hey, Tiangong's bloodline was extracted in order to help you. So saving him is your responsibility. You cannot avoid it. Come, follow me into the room. When we're done with this, once this matter is settled, it is time for us to leave Giant Deer City and take a good look at this endless abyss. On the 4th day after Abyssal Demon Dragon Elder Alpha left Giant Deer City, an ordinary black carriage quietly drove out of the city gates. The coachman was a stern, middle-aged man. He had a cold expression, and his eyes stared straight ahead. Occasionally, they would sweep around, a sharp light flashing in his eyes. Behind the carriage was an old man of the demon fox race riding a wildebeest. He wore ordinary blue robes and carried a cloth bag on his back. He seemed like an accountant. Giant Deer City and the tens of millions of demons that had survived the calamity didn't know that the person who had helped them survive had quietly left. Of course, it was more accurate to say that the reason they had encountered this terrifying beast tide was because of them. Thus, Qin Yu never thought of obtaining the gratitude of Giant Deer City or obtaining anything from them. Since Liao Shi wanted to leave and see the abyss, then he would leave. The carriage seemed ordinary, but the interior was spacious and comfortable. The floor was covered with thick soft fur from some kind of demon beast. In front of a comfortable and wide couch was a table carved from abyssal black jade. The table itself was connected to the carriage so that it wouldn't shake as it moved or bumped. On the surface of the table, there was an oil lamp quietly burning. The oil was a pure and transparent color, and as it burned, it emitted a refreshing fragrance. Mianya wore the dress of a demon maid. She was kneeling on the fur, looking at the two people playing chess on both sides of the table. Her lips twitched. This level was really bad. No, my move is wrong. Let me take a step back. Liao Shi grabbed a chess piece, his face flushing red. Qin Yu rubbed his temples. If you continue like this, there really isn't any way to play. Liao Shi curled his lips, a look of disdain on his face. Are you a man or not? I just want to take a step back. Can't you agree to something as simple as that? Qin Yu's face darkened. Take a step back? Haha. You've already taken 13 steps in this game, and you still want to tell me if you're a man or not. Moreover, this has nothing to do with being a man or not. You were the one who went too far. Mianya nodded. She looked at Qin Yu with some sympathy. Playing chess with such an opponent was truly torturous. But she never thought that even though her movements were careful enough, they would still be noticed by Liao Shi. Her eyes widened, and she viciously said, What do you mean by nodding? You smelly girl, don't forget your current status. Otherwise, I'll make you warm Qin Yu's bed tonight. Mianya's face flushed red. She lowered her head and then looked up at Qin Yu with watery eyes. This 9-tailed demon fox woman. What are you looking at me for? I didn't say anything. And that look in your eyes, there seems to be something wrong. Qin Yu's complexion darkened even further. He pointed a finger at the window. The window was forged from special demon crystals. Although it looked pitch black from the outside, one could clearly see the scenery outside from within. This lake isn't bad. Liao Shi threw down the chess piece and sat up. Where is it? Let me take a look. She nearly fell onto Qin Yu's face. She had to draw back a great distance to avoid the Twin Peaks empowerment. Qin coughed. If you want to take a look, then take a good look. Don't be so excited. Liao Shi rolled his eyes at him and muttered something to himself. Then he stood up and excitedly laughed. All right, I announce that we will set up camp here today. Let's face the lake and have a barbecue. That taste will be wonderful. Stop, stop. She slapped the carriage and shouted. The carriage stopped and the door opened from the outside. Liao Shi jumped out and shouted, Qin, hurry up and get out. The scenery here is too good. Qin pretended not to see Mian Ye's increasingly sad eyes. He nodded and got off the carriage. He casually looked around. The lake wasn't too large, and there were some trees and vegetation. The scenery was average and could barely be considered beautiful. How could Liao Shi be so surprised? However, the purpose of this trip was to accompany her to relieve her boredom. Since she wanted to rest here, so be it. The carriage stopped by the lake. The driver quickly set up the tent, pulled out the reclining chairs, placed down the round table, and covered the ground with a soft blanket. After respectfully bowing, he turned and walked towards the lake. Liao Shi had already said that they would have a barbecue, so they naturally needed the freshest ingredients. Splash! The driver jumped into the lake. If others were to see what the master of Giant Deer City's merry forest, the one who controlled millions of fugitives, He Tiangang, was doing right now, their eyes would likely pop out of their sockets. But in comparison, all of this didn't seem like much at all. This was because Old Fox, who was in charge of a branch of Thousand Eye Hall, was laughing as he pulled out the barbecue rack and prepared the various ingredients he needed. Although it had been many years since he had personally made food, since Miss Liao Shi had a request, he had to do his best. Ha! It had to be known that when he was young, Old Fox was quite skilled in cooking. He had relied on this to capture the hearts of many young and ignorant demonesses. Of course, he had also obtained many other things. But this was a very serious story, so he could only ignore it. In the shadow of the carriage, there seemed to be something gently wriggling about. Then it quickly slithered away. Since he was stationed here, he naturally had to tidy up the surrounding environment in advance, lest he ruin Miss Liao Shi's mood. Shadowless Demon turned his head and looked at the young man and woman standing by the lake. Without a doubt, he had chosen to follow Qin wholeheartedly. But in his heart, Miss Liao Shi's position was no less than Qin. Perhaps a little higher? That was because this was a woman filled with legends. She was so powerful that even the demonic dragon race's elder had to maintain respect in front of her. That's right, respect. Shadowless Demon's superb ability to discern people's thoughts and expressions allowed him to find this emotion in the subtle expressions that elder arcane magic revealed. Putting aside everything else, just this point alone was enough for him to curry favor with her. Soon, He Tiangang walked out from the lake, his hands dragging a dragonfish and a red-backed prawn. Although they had already been killed, the corpses of the two demon beasts were still emitting powerful fluctuations of demonic energy. It was clear they were extremely strong. But even so, facing the attack of a demon commander, they were unable to resist at all. They were cleanly sliced apart without the slightest ripple on the surface of the lake. Shadowless Demon quietly returned to the shadow of the carriage. Only there were several demon beasts that had just died on the ground. These demon beasts were all excellent barbecue materials. Old Fox began to get busy. He ran far away and cut open their bellies, skinned them, cleaned them, and skewered them. As the charcoal fire burned, the air began to fill with an extremely tempting fragrance. Liao Shi picked up a skewer of roasted prawn meat and took a bite. His eyes widened and he nodded repeatedly at Old Fox. Delicious, delicious. Old Fox, your cooking skills are quite good. It would be a pity if you didn't open a barbecue stall. Mian Ye quietly rolled her eyes. Only the young miss would have a clear conscience and allow a demon commander level powerhouse to do something like this. Open a barbecue stall? Let alone impossible. Even if you did open one, who would dare to spend money there? He took a bite. The barbecue was a bit hot, but the taste was truly wonderful. Moreover, there was a rich demonic energy contained within the meat. I'll eat, I'll desperately eat. This could also be counted as a form of cultivation. Only those who had 3 demon marshals as their servants could easily eat this kind of high-quality food. Of course, they couldn't miss this opportunity. Chapter 1068. Old Fox beamed with joy at the praise. He said, "As long as Miss Liao sure likes it, that's fine. When I was young, I practiced cooking for a period of time. If you want to eat anything, feel free to ask." Tiangang narrowed his eyes. His expression was still cold and indifferent, but he couldn't help but sigh inwardly. Who would have thought that the skills that this fellow had painstakingly practiced in order to attract the attention of all the demonesses in the past would actually be put to use today? This old fox, he could be considered making the best use of him. Although there were no stars, sun, or moon in the abyss, there were still yin and yang, dawn and dusk. As the bottom of the upper layer of the abyss darkened, night arrived. In the dim lake, there was an unknown plant on the lakeside that actually bloomed. In the twilight, it emitted a faint halo of light, blue and translucent. It was like a small whirlwind that had been dyed in color. It was unexpectedly beautiful. Liao sure ate and drank his fill. He patted his slightly bulging belly and then lay down on the soft blanket on the ground. His eyes widened as he looked at the flowers in front of him, an incomparably surprised expression on his face. Qin Yu walked over. "I just asked. This is a very common abyssal plant called Jiu. It blooms at night and closes during the day. Do you have to be so ignorant? Is there a need to do this?" Liao sure humphed twice. He snappily said, "Great official Qin, you are far more experienced and knowledgeable. Have you been to the abyss before?" Qin Yu's face darkened. He discovered that Liao Shi's ability to piss people off was increasing recently. He coldly sneered and flicked his sleeves before walking away. He drew back some distance and sat down on a recliner. His eyes fell on Liao Shi, who was still lying on the ground and watching with rapt attention. A trace of softness appeared in his eyes. He could feel that Liao Shi was truly happy from the bottom of her heart. Although he didn't know what it was fine as long as she was happy. 10 days after today, half of it would be over. He didn't know whether or not Liao Shi would keep her promise and tell him everything. As Qin Yu was thinking, there was some movement in the distance. Soon, a group of demons appeared in his line of sight. "Stop!" someone ordered, and the group came to a halt. "I think this place is relatively quiet. It isn't safe to travel at night, so let's set up camp here." The indifferent voice of the young man sounded out naturally. There was an unquestionable aura of someone in a superior position. It was clear that his status was not ordinary. In the group, the commander of the demon guards in charge of safety swept his eyes over the lakeside. It was obvious that there was a carriage parked there. He frowned and said, "Young master, there are already people here. If there are too many people, we might as well camp for a while longer. If there are people, then let them leave. Do I need to give instructions for such a small matter?" The young voice rang out again. The guard leader's eyes revealed a trace of helplessness. "Yes, I understand." He turned around and was about to order his subordinates to disperse the people by the lake when he suddenly stopped and looked at the figure walking towards them. Tiangong's face was expressionless as he walked in front of them. "My master is resting here and does not wish to be disturbed. Please leave immediately. You're courting." Before one of the guards could finish his words, he was sent flying with a heavy kick. The guard captain's face paled, and he forced a smile and said, "My apologies, our subordinates are ignorant of the rules and offended you. We'll leave right now." Tiangang nodded, "Thank you." He turned and left. After finding the unconscious demon guard, the caravan quickly left. It wasn't until they were some distance away that the young man's voice echoed out from the carriage. Although it was calm, one could clearly feel the raging anger that was suppressed beneath this calmness. "Commander Black Armor, I think you owe me an explanation." The guard captain turned his head to look at the nearly invisible lake. Only then did he truly relax. But he still subconsciously lowered his voice and said, "Young master, the person we just spoke with is incomparably strong. He is at least a peak demon general to be able to casually order around someone like that. As a servant, he absolutely has a great background. It is best if we don't come into conflict with him." The young man was silent for a moment. Then his tone became light. "We won't stop tonight. Let's continue on our way." "Yes." Seeing that the guard captain didn't pursue the matter further, Black Armor was happy. Although it was possible that they would encounter some demon beasts at night, compared to the conflict with those people behind them, it wasn't a problem at all. The small disturbance dissipated before it had even fully formed. Qin Yu and Liao Shi didn't even know what had happened. The next day, they enjoyed another refreshing breakfast by the lake. Liao Shi pulled Qin Yu back to the carriage, shouting that yesterday's battle hadn't been decided yet. So today they had to kill each other. Qin Yu lifted a hand to his forehead, feeling as if he wanted to die. The chess game of the abyssal demon race could be considered interesting, but when the opponent was an unreasonable woman, it became nothing more than a torture. He braced himself and played 3 rounds with Liao Shi. In the end, he lost 2 and won 1. After wasting a great deal of time and effort, he was finally able to rid himself of her pestering him to play another round. Then he tossed this task to the pale-faced Mianya. After drinking several cups of herbal tea in a single breath, he felt the clog feeling in his chest dissipate. He found a comfortable place to lie down and unknowingly fell asleep. Even with Qin Yu's cultivation, he still felt tired. It could be imagined just how exhausting it was to play chess with Liao Shi. By the time he was woken up, the sky had already darkened. Qin Yu narrowed his eyes and saw the pale Mianya in front of him, her eyes filled with grief. He thought that this was truly tragic, but in this sort of situation he could only apologize and forget about it. Liao Shi had already walked out of the carriage. He pointed not too far away, towards a small demon city with flickering lights. He laughed and said, "We'll be staying here tonight." As she turned and saw Qin Yu, she immediately revealed a look of disdain. You slept for an entire day? Qin Yu, are you a pig?" Towards her provocation, Qin Yu only chuckled in response. It was important to know one's own limits. With her chess skills, calling her a pig would be an insult to such an honest creature. "Qin Yu!" Liao sure seemed to see through his thoughts. He shouted out loud and threw himself at him. "If you dare to speak of this, you're dead!" Mianya had a relieved expression. She thought that he had finally endured everything she had suffered, but Miss Liao Shi's chess skills were really, really bad. After arguing for some time, the carriage quietly entered the small city and chose the largest inn to stay in. When the carriage stopped, He Tiangang swept his eyes over several carriages not too far away. He furrowed his eyebrows for a moment before composing himself. The demon that opened the inn was an old man from the fox race. Indeed, this race was naturally quick-witted and was good at using money to do business. The demon fox race was said to be in control of nearly a third of the various industries in the entire Dark Abyss. Of course, the demon fox race itself wasn't considered strong. This so-called one-third of the industries were mostly managed by the demon fox race. Even so, this was enough to show just how high the demon fox race's level of management was. The 2 old foxes chatted happily. Old Fox introduced himself as the accountant that followed the boss on this trip. The old fox opposite him immediately arched an eyebrow, a proud and reserved expression on his face as he said, "When it comes to managing finances and accounts, there's no one in the entire Dark Abyss that can compare with our demon fox race." Old Fox nodded in agreement to this. If it weren't for the fact that there was still a group of people waiting, then looking at the 2 old foxes chatting happily, they would likely be holding hands and going to the back residence to eat chicken and drink wine. Thanks to Old Fox, the inn owner said that although an honored guest had arrived just now and occupied several of the best rooms in the inn, There were still some rooms that they didn't normally open to the public and were only used to entertain friends and family. Thus, he took them out to entertain them. Old Fox repeatedly expressed his thanks. Then, the owner called over a servant and led them to choose a room. The location was indeed good. Moreover, there was a small river behind the inn. As soon as one opened the window, they could see the lights on the riverside and the branches of the demon willow fluttering on both sides. Liao Shi was very satisfied. Then he unceremoniously chose the best room. There were 2 suites inside and outside, and the area wasn't small. Then he turned around and pointed at Qin Yu, who was preparing to choose a room. He arched an eyebrow and said, "You and I will be in the same room. You are not allowed to argue. You've already slept for an entire day, so tonight is the time for you to show your strength. This time, I'm going to kill you until you're utterly defeated." One could clearly see the cunning smile on the owner's face stiffen. He looked at Liao Shi and then at Qin Yu, wondering if the youths of the demon race were so open-minded these days. Moreover, this young girl was so beautiful, and yet she didn't understand the slightest bit of restraint. In front of everyone's eyes, she had actually challenged a man. This was truly a loss of face. Before this, in order to avoid unnecessary trouble, Liao Shi and Qin Yu had disguised themselves a little. They appeared to be ordinary high-level demons. The appearance of a member of the royal family was far too eye-catching. Old Fox's lips twitched. He certainly knew that his fellow demon had misunderstood, but he didn't dare to say anything rude. Otherwise, this inn might have to change owners after today. He lightly coughed and wrapped an arm around Old Fox's shoulder. "Come, bring us to our rooms. The young master and miss must be tired today, so you should rest early." As he spoke, he glanced at Mayanya. "What are you standing around for? Hurry up and invite the young master and miss into their rooms." The inn owner's lips twitched. Even as he followed them, he couldn't help but turn his head to look at that incomparably beautiful young maid. It was actually a scene of a dragon and 2 phoenixes. Gulp! Behind him, some unknown servant couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. The inn owner thought that these servants were truly useless. But as he thought about it, if it were him today, stop, hurry up and stop. His head felt dizzy, and he felt as if blood would spurt out of his nose. Qin Yu's complexion darkened. He walked into the room and shouted out, "Liao Shi, when you speak, can't you pay attention to your words?" Mayanya's face blushed red. She carefully stood to the side, her heart racing. If this was really the case, then it wouldn't be too bad. Of course, it was true that she wanted to climb into Qin Yu's bed. Whether it was because of his strength or the existence of the 1,000 illusionary demon mirror, this was the best choice. But to say that Mayanya had any sincerity towards Qin Yu would be a joke. But in the dark abyss, powerhouses controlled everything. To have a chance to rely on a powerhouse was already the greatest fortune in itself. What sincerity? That was simply the ravings of an idiot. Liao Shi humphed. If your heart is pure, then everything is pure. If your thoughts aren't pure, then you can only look for reasons within yourself. As she spoke, she glared at Qin Yu. "And you little hussy, just what is going on in your head? Although I don't oppose you relying on your own abilities to climb into Qin Yu's bed, you should at least restrain yourself when you're in front of me." Mayanya said that she would make the bed for them and then left with a red face. But before she left, she glared at Qin Yu, her eyes like 2 small hooks that wanted to pull out his soul. Liao Shi jokingly called her a coquettish fox. He pointed at Qin Yu and said, "You better be careful. Don't be so mesmerized by her that you forget who you are." Qin Yu replied that he didn't need to worry about her. He wanted to run away, but Liao Shi firmly grabbed onto him. If he didn't play 8 or 10 games with him, he wouldn't let him go. After that, Qin Yu didn't sleep for the entire night. When he finally got rid of Liao Shi at dawn, he felt as if there were countless chess pieces circling in front of him, constantly colliding with each other and madly drilling into his brain. This was despair. As for Liao Shi, Even though he hadn't slept all night, he was still in high spirits. He pulled Chinyu out and said that he would personally make breakfast to thank him for his hard work last night. In the end, when the two of them left for the inn's kitchen, they were met by a passing shopkeeper. As the shopkeeper looked at the stark contrast between the two of them, he subconsciously grinned. He thought that even if a young man was full of energy, he still wouldn't be able to withstand a 1 versus 2 battle. In the dark abyss, there were only old bulls that died of exhaustion. There were no fields that were ruined. No, I have to go talk to my wife. It's so early in the morning, and she's too hot. Chapter 1069. Reality proved that no one was omnipotent. Even though Liao Shi had an unfathomably mysterious background and was a peerless demon refiner, his cooking skills were lacking. Qin, you didn't know just how much determination it took for him to endure the torture and stuff that could be called food into his stomach. After finishing this hellish breakfast, he vowed in his heart that he would never allow Liao Shi to take a single step into the kitchen again. As for how to persuade her to give up on her goal of becoming a top chef, a woman had to live a refined life. Yes, that was it. Mianya had a sympathetic expression. She suddenly realized that the reason Chinyu was still alive and kicking was because of the powerful abyssal Titan bloodline in his body. If it were an ordinary demon, they would have been tortured to death in minutes. The small city wasn't large, and there weren't many fun places to go. After Liao Shi asked a few questions, her eyes brightened. This was because she had heard some exciting news. Several thousand miles away from the small city, 5 Element City would be holding a massive auction. It was said that countless treasures would be sold, and there would also be many rare and precious treasures from the abyss on display. Thus, after a second of consideration, Liao Shi waved her hand and made a decision. Their next destination was 5 Element City. With a goal in mind, they couldn't wait any longer. Liao Shi didn't want to delay at all. She hurried everyone along. Panting, the shopkeeper Old Fox, whose face was still slightly flushed, hurriedly rushed over and pulled Elder, whose hand reluctantly. He only said that he had a good chat with him and really did not want to leave so soon. Old Who smiled. He said that since he was working for others, he naturally didn't have much freedom. If fate willed it, they would meet again in the future. The shopkeeper Old Fox sighed. He said that our fox race is unparalleled in intelligence, but unfortunately our bloodline talent is too ordinary. If we could give birth to a demon king, the status of the entire fox race would rise. Why would we need to live under someone else's roof? Old Who bitterly smiled. Although my master is good, I can't say such words again. Otherwise, it will be hard for me to do things in the future. The shopkeeper Old Fox nodded repeatedly. He said that he had been negligent and that he was truly sorry. Old Who shook his head. His master was a generous person and wouldn't blame him for some unintentional words. But the truth was that Old Who approved of the shopkeeper Old Fox's words. The fox race's devil race bloodline could only be considered ordinary. It was only because of their superior intelligence that they managed to maintain their current status as a middle-class abyss race. However, if a fox clan king were to be born, he would naturally be able to lead the entire demon fox clan to an unprecedented peak. And now he was working hard for this goal. As long as His Excellency Chinyu could break through the layers upon layers of trials and obtain the approval of the abyss will, he would surely become the only supreme ruler of the endless abyss. At that time, he would naturally be able to obtain everything he wanted. While Old Fox and the owner of the inn, Old Fox, seized the time to bid farewell, the other group of guests had already left. There were 3 dragon horses in charge of pulling the gigantic carriages. Although the dragon race's bloodline was thin since they had no horns on their heads, they were still dragon horses. They were top-quality demonic beasts, and they could easily travel 10,000 kilometers in a day. With 3 dragon horses pulling the carriage, he could naturally be considered an honored guest. Furthermore, there was a group of guards that were clearly not to be trifled with. Anyone with a brain would know that the person sitting in the carriage was definitely a truly important person. Black armor, casually tossed out some demon crystals. The several servants that were busily sending them off immediately revealed looks of ecstasy and bowed again and again. Although there weren't any hidden dangers in this errand, the person in the carriage had a different status. If something were to happen, they would all suffer a calamity. Not daring to be careless, Black Armor swept his sharp eyes around. But at this time he froze. Not too far away, there was a lonely carriage and an ordinary wildebeest. They were calmly waiting by the roadside for their masters to arrive. The day before yesterday, although it had been late at night and he hadn't been able to see too clearly, when Black Armor's eyes fell on this carriage, his heart shrank. His intuition told him that the masters of this carriage were those people he had met by the lake that day. His first thought was that they had caught up, but soon he suppressed this thought. If they really wanted to make things difficult for him, they could have done so that day. There would have been no need to go through so much trouble. Moreover, they had clearly stayed in this inn. Since there was no movement from them, it meant that the matter from that day had already been resolved. Black Armor let out a long breath, his heart relaxing. In his opinion, this was the best possible result. At the same time, he sighed inwardly, as expected of someone with a profound background. Even this breadth of mind was not something that ordinary people could compare to. After all, the young master in the carriage that day had not concealed his words. With the strength that one of the other party had displayed, they must have already noticed. With this conjecture in mind, Zhang Xian looked at the seemingly ordinary armored carriage once more, and he noticed something strange about it. For example, its size was obvious. It was much larger than ordinary armored carriages, so the interior must be very comfortable. There were also windows that couldn't be seen from the outside. There were also some complex and beautiful patterns on the surface of the crystal. Black Armor had seen this kind of window material before. It seemed to be a very precious and special kind of demon crystal that was quite expensive. There were also the ruts of the carriage and the marks on the ground. This showed that the weight of the entire carriage was quite astonishing. It was likely that beneath this ordinary exterior, the interior had already been reinforced and arranged countless times. The carriage was so heavy, yet it could be easily pulled by just two ordinary wildebeests. Either the carriage itself used a demon array, or these two wildebeests were absolutely not ordinary. Thinking about it, the latter was more likely. Their team's dragon horse was here, and its aura would suppress horse-type demon beasts. But now these two wildebeests, no, 3 wildebeests, including the one at the back, didn't seem the slightest bit out of the ordinary. They clearly had a powerful background and powerful guards, but they were acting so low-key. There must be something going on here. Black Armor took a deep breath and looked away, suppressing the tumbling thoughts in his heart. It was best not to care about other people's affairs, although these people hadn't shown any hostility towards them. After what happened at the lakeside, their relationship couldn't be considered harmonious. However, after the incident at the lakeside, their relationship couldn't be considered harmonious, no matter what. It was better to leave as soon as possible and not meet him again. "Are you ready?" Black Armor shouted. After confirming, he came to the carriage and respectfully said, "Young master, we can go." "Do you see the carriage over there?" The young man's voice sounded. Black Armor's complexion changed. He braced himself and said, "Yes." "You, and I thought the same. It really is them." The young man's voice lowered. Then there was a knock on the carriage. "Let's hurry." Black Armor let out a deep breath and immediately ordered the team to move. He thought that although the city lord's little brother was a bit arrogant, he wasn't completely brainless. When the team left the small city, they began to speed up. According to their plan, they had to arrive at 5 Element City tonight. After another moment, the armored carriage carrying Liao Shi, Qin Yu, and Mayanya left the city gates. Black Tiangang was still driving the carriage. Old Fox was riding on a wildebeest, holding 2 pheasants that the old fox shop owner had given him before he left. These pheasants had absorbed abyssal demon energy and had crimson black fur. They tasted the best and were one of the favorite foods of the fox race. Thinking of Miss Liao Shi's love for good food, Old Fox was already thinking of using these 2 pheasants to make a feast. Hurry up, hurry up. We need to go to 5 Element City and participate in the auction. Haha, I want to buy. I want to smash their heads with demon crystals. Liao Shi pushed open the window and drilled half of his body out. He waved his hands and shouted. Black Tiangang, who was driving the carriage, revealed a faint smile on his cold face. He flicked the whip in his hand and said, Miss, please sit down. We will leave immediately. Black Tiangang, hurry up. I want to eat dinner in 5 Elements City. Liao Shi returned to the carriage and sat down. Myanya closed the window. The 2 wildebeests pulling the carriage neighed at the same time as their hooves suddenly sped up. Large amounts of abyss devil energy gathered under their hooves and formed the shape of dragons. Low roars that sounded like dragon roars could be heard as they lifted the carriage and the horsemen into the air. Whoosh! The black carriage suddenly accelerated. Like a shadow, it howled into the distance. Old Fox patted the wildebeest beneath him. You should hurry up too. Don't be left too far behind. The wildebeest cried out in response. Its hooves moved as it chased after the carriage. Thanks to Myanya, Liao Shi had gained a new hobby, reading. It wasn't some ancient book that involved the history of the abyss or biographies of famous characters. His eyes casually swept over the cover. There were all sorts of gaudy illustrations and incomparably exaggerated excerpts. For example, my love, I will follow you to the end of the abyss, or why? Why are you treating me like this? My love for you can fill the entire abyss. Of course. I will accompany you to see the rain fall from the abyss. I will accompany you through the joys and sorrows of life, and we will laugh and cry together were even more common. Qin Yu curled his lips. He thought that Liao Shi actually liked to read these sorts of things and was so fascinated by them. She was just too childish. But whether or not she was childish wasn't important at all. As long as Liao Shi was honest and didn't force him to play chess, everything was fine. Qin Yu comfortably closed his eyes and switched to a more comfortable position. He thought that starting like this, a trip that could stop and go as he pleased, was also a wonderful thing. He enjoyed this, but he absolutely wouldn't indulge in it. This was because Qin Yu knew that the reason they were able to obtain such a peaceful time was because Liao Shi had done something. This woman had gone crazy playing these past 2 days. It was hard to see just what she was hiding in her heart. There was no need to think about it. Today was already the 7th day. Once the appointed day arrived, he would naturally know the secret that Liao Shi was hiding. As for whether or not she would act shamelessly, Qin Yu guaranteed that if she really dared to do so, he would absolutely not let her off. The standard of the stories in the abyss was clearly quite good. On the way to 5 Elements City, Liao Shi didn't even lift her head. She would occasionally rub her red and sore eyes before quickly burying her head back down, as if she were too busy reading to care about anything else. It was only when the black iron carriage began to slow down and Tiangong's voice sounded out that she reluctantly put down the book in her hands. Qin Yu glanced at the cover. What he saw was a man dressed in extremely revealing clothes. His skin was fair and delicate, and the areas that were exposed were also white and tender. His eyebrows and lips were curved, filled with a feminine aura. He couldn't help but furrow his eyebrows. Just what was wrong with women these days? Why did they prefer this type? Sissy, mother canon, female canon, forget it. All sorts of canons had roughly the same meaning. Qin Yu didn't know which phrase could perfectly describe it. In short, it was the type that when he looked at it, he couldn't help but feel goosebumps rise all over his body, and he wanted to send it flying with a punch. Chapter 1070. Sir, miss, we've arrived at 5 Element City. Liao Shi stretched his waist and rubbed his sore neck as he muttered softly, We're almost there. The corners of Qin Yu's lips twitched. This woman, She had probably gone mad from watching him. Hey, what's with that expression? So what if I like reading? Do you have a problem with that? Liao Shi glanced at him, his face fierce. As long as you're happy. After a day of peace and quiet, it was all thanks to Liao Shi's new hobby. It was best not to look for trouble. Seeing Qin Yu give in, Liao Shi proudly raised his head. Unfortunately, his movements were a bit too big and his stiff neck muscles pulled. With a cry, he fell over. Qin Yu hurriedly caught her. He immediately felt an extraordinary and shocking sensation. His body stiffened and he quickly helped her up. Woman, can't you be a little more careful? Isn't it all because of you? Otherwise would I have fallen over? Liao Shi clenched his teeth. He stepped on his foot and patted the carriage. Open the door. It's suffocating in the carriage. I want to take a walk. The carriage stopped and Liao Shi angrily pushed open the door. In the carriage behind, Qin Yu let out a light breath. Luckily, this woman's curves were thick enough. Otherwise, the accident just now would have been very embarrassing. It feels good, right? Mianya suddenly said, winking at Qin Yu. This woman was too bold. She actually dared to tease him. Could it be that he had forgotten the suffering he had suffered at the hands of Jilu City? Qin Yu humphed and got up to leave. Behind him, Mianya's voice continued. Actually, it feels better for me. Qin Yu almost missed his step. His body swayed, and he walked out of the carriage with a dark expression. For the 1,000th illusionary demon mirror, this woman was willing to disregard everything. It seemed that he had to think of a way to make her suffer as soon as possible and solve the problem once and for all. She was trying to seduce him. Oh, but would it really feel better than Liao Shi's? It seemed that there was a reason. Mianya was clearly bigger. Qin Yu took a deep breath and suppressed all these random thoughts. After activating his abyssal Titan bloodline, his energy seemed to have become more and more vigorous. He had to be more vigilant. Otherwise, if he wasn't careful, it was possible that his flaws would be grasped by others and he would end up in an extremely tragic state. Thinking of this, Qin Yu's heart chilled. The dark thoughts in his mind rapidly vanished like bubbles. 5-Element City was very large, even larger than Jilu City. Looking up, one could see that the city walls reached into the sky, as if there was no end to it. It was unknown how many years had passed, but the surface of the city walls was marked with countless marks of damage. Each mark represented a terrifying war. Perhaps it was an internal struggle of the demon race, or perhaps it was a threat from the demonic beasts. But no matter what the reason was, a large number of demon race members were destined to die. It could be said that every mark on the city wall had been soaked in blood, imprisoning the souls of the dead demons that had yet to completely disperse. A powerful, baleful aura spread out from within the city walls. This in itself was an extremely powerful deterrent. It reminded outsiders not to have any ideas about this giant city. It was a giant beast that could devour everything. Woo-woo, strong winds blew past. One could almost hear the unwilling roars of the dead demon race members. In the eyes of the demon race, Liao Shi possessed a formidable charm. To them, Qin Yu's ordinary appearance was enough to topple cities with a single smile. Thus, not long after she stepped out of the carriage, she had already attracted the attention of countless demon race members. Most of them had burning hot gazes. If it weren't for He Tiangang standing to the side, expressionless as if he weren't someone to be provoked, there might have already been demon race members walking forwards. Qin Yu's lips twitched. If things continued like this, no one could be sure that there wouldn't be any problems. After all, although the demon race of the abyss possessed intelligence no less than that of flesh and blood beings, because of the abyssal demonic energy, they were often impulsive and easily angered. Although there was no need to fear them, it was best to avoid meaningless trouble if possible. The abyss had temporarily retreated from locking onto them. But Qin Yu had no idea when it would descend upon them again. As long as he was careful and didn't arouse its attention, there was nothing wrong with that. Walking to Liao Shi's side, Chinyu lightly coughed. Didn't you say that you were going to participate in the auction? It's getting late. If we are late, I fear there won't be any seats left. Liao Shi's eyes brightened. That's right. Let's hurry into the city. Old Fox stepped forwards to negotiate. It was unknown what he said, but the group of demon race guards at the city gates were all extremely respectful as they escorted them into Five Element City. Who is this young lady? She is as beautiful as a fairy. In my opinion, not even a celestial immortal can compare to her. What a pity this young lady is clearly someone with a great background. She isn't someone you or I can touch. After today, how can any other demon race woman be pleasing to the eye? The corners of Black Armor's mouth twitched as he listened to the whispers around him. He had never thought that he would actually meet the other party again in Five Element City. Including the time at the lake, this was the third time. It could be considered fate, but what a pity. This fate wasn't what he wanted at all. Black Armor. The young master's voice sounded out from within the carriage. Black Armor bowed. Please speak. This is the third time we've met this young lady, right? With such fate, how could we sit idly by and do nothing? The young master's voice was still calm, but there was an imperceptible heat in his words. Black Armor's face stiffened. Young master, there is no need to speak further. I have already made up my mind. Go and find out where they are staying and where they're going. The young master's voice was cold. Black Armor sighed inwardly and respectfully nodded. After entering Five Element City, it wasn't difficult at all to find out all the information about the auction. But the bad news was that the auction had already been set 3 months ago and all sorts of admission tickets had been sold. Thus, Chinyu's words had become reality. The admission tickets had already been sold out. This left Liao Shi dissatisfied. He glared at Chinyu and said that he had jinxed him. Then he threatened that if he couldn't enter the auction house, he would teach him a lesson. Old Fox smiled and calmed Liao Shi down. He said that the young lady could rest assured and leave everything to this lowly one. He left for a while, and then really came back with 6 tickets, and they were all seats in the infield near the front. As for the price, it was nothing more than a sum of demon crystals. Old Fox took the initiative to leave and give up the position of steward of Thousand Eye Temple as compensation. In return, he received a sum of demon crystals. No one knew the exact amount, but with Old Fox's personality that didn't want to lose out, the person who would take over the position of steward of Giant Deer City must have paid a great deal of blood. These were just mere admission tickets. Even though they had been inflated to a sky-high price, in Old Fox's eyes they were nothing more than a drizzle, not worth mentioning at all. Liao Shi happily patted Old Fox's shoulder. He said that allowing Old Fox to follow him was the right decision. These words made Old Fox feel as if he were floating in the air. There was nothing he could do about it. He had experienced many trials and tribulations and had tempered his calm temperament. But this great aunt in front of him was someone that even a dignified demon dragon race elder had to obediently respect. As for how strong she was, besides Chinyu, no one knew. But even if one used their fist to think, they would know that she was absolutely a peak character, someone who could easily dominate the abyss. After being praised by her, it was hard not to feel smug. But the truth was that Chinyu really didn't know. And in terms of Liao Shi's background, he was the same as Old Fox and the others. He was completely in the dark. Let's go. Let's find a place to stay, and then go to the auction house. Liao Shi waved his hand in high spirits, his face full of anticipation. Five Element City's auction was held in the eastern part of the city, in a place called the Netherworld Platform. This was another incomparably powerful influence that spanned across many layers of the abyss. What was different from Thousand Eye Temple and Three Life Pavilion was that the Netherworld Platform only held auctions and didn't sell them to the public. Because it was powerful enough and had a first-rate reputation, it gradually became the #1 auction house in the abyss. No one knew just what sort of formidable background the Netherworld Platform was hiding. But for countless years, as long as the Netherworld platform held an auction, there had never been any accidents. Of course, it wasn't that there hadn't been any accidents, but that even if there were, they would be erased in the shortest period of time. The auction this time was also held by the Netherworld platform. They'd chosen in not too far from the auction house. Although there was still some time before the auction, Liaosher couldn't wait any longer. After a quick dinner, he shouted that he wanted to go to the Netherworld platform right away. This caused Old Fox to look at the 2 pheasants in his hands, a helpless look on his face. He originally wanted to cook a delicious meal so that Miss Liaosher would look at him in a higher light. But now he could only temporarily postpone this idea. With Liaosher and Qinyu in front, they left the inn. In the shadows of the street, there seemed to be a mass of water swimming about. It quietly arrived behind the 2 demons. Then the shadow suddenly rose up from the ground. It was like a big mouth that was open wide, biting towards them. But at this time, the shadow paused for a moment. Then, like a bubble, it burst and dissipated. Shua, one of the demons, turned his head. He didn't discover anything wrong and subconsciously frowned. "Did you feel anything?" "No," the other demon said. "Perhaps I was too nervous. Since we've already obtained the news, there's no need to delay any further. Let's hurry back and report." "Okay." The 2 demons turned and left in a hurry. But they didn't know that just now they had already taken a step into the gates of hell. Not long after the 2 demons left, there was a fluctuation in the air. The figure of Shadowless Demon, dressed in loose black robes, slowly appeared. He looked in the direction that the 2 demons had left and then looked in another direction. He didn't understand why Miss Liaosher had stopped him, although he couldn't figure it out. Since Miss Liaosher had stopped him, she must have her reasons. All he needed to do was comply. Moreover, no matter who sent these 2, if they dared to have any ideas about Miss Liaosher or Sir Qinyu, they were absolutely seeking death. Shadowless Demon looked down at the admission ticket in his hand and then stepped forward. In the blink of an eye, he blended into the crowd and vanished. The famous 5-element city auction, hosted by the Netherworld platform, was finally going to begin tonight. 3 main venues and 7 branch venues would hold the auction at the same time. There would be over 1,000 items up for auction. It could be said to be priceless. Several days ago, a massive number of demons had gathered in 5-element city, and today the number had reached its peak. According to incomplete statistics, because of this auction, there were at least 5 million demons gathered in 5-element city. Not long after the beast tide passed, the originally desolate 5-element city became bustling once more. Thinking about it, the demons that survived the beast tide needed to spend some money to vent the joy in their hearts. In short, because of the early outbreak of the beast tide, the originally pessimistic auction was even more popular than expected. The direct result was that the streets leading to the Netherworld platform were now filled with a sea of people. Luckily, 5-element city had already expected such a situation and had sent a massive number of demon guards to maintain order. Because of this, the flow of people wasn't completely blocked. They were still able to maintain a slow pace as they moved forward. Old Fox and Hei Tiangang stood in front and behind, blocking the surging flow of people and preventing them from colliding with Liaosher. But there were simply too many people, and they couldn't expose their cultivation, so the 2 of them were sweating profusely. Old Fox said, "Miss, with our tickets, we can enjoy VIP treatment. As long as we reveal our identities, we can enter through the fast passage." Liaosher hesitated. She looked at the crowd of demons and said, "With our current speed, will we be able to catch up to the auction?" Old Fox shook his head. "That won't happen. We have plenty of time." Liaosher said, "Then let's not take the fast passage. It's also good to squeeze a bit here." Old Fox bitterly smiled. He thought that Miss Liaosher's interests were truly different from others. He and Hei Tiangang looked at each other and sensed each other's thoughts. With a thought They each summoned a wisp of demonic energy and quietly pushed away the surrounding demons. There were some that didn't know what was good for them. They stared at Liao Shi, their breathing ragged, and they fell to the ground. In the blink of an eye, they had been stepped on several hundred times. Whether they lived or died would depend on their own luck. Of course, strictly speaking, Old Fox and He Tiangang had saved their lives. Otherwise, if they really did try to squeeze over, it wouldn't be a matter of life or death. Rather, they would be crushed to pieces in the blink of an eye. Qin Yu looked at the excited Liao Shi, who was constantly glancing back and forth. The strange feeling in his heart became even stronger. This woman clearly had a deep background and formidable strength. So why did she always act like she hadn't seen the world? He just couldn't figure it out. An hour later, they finally arrived at the entrance to the Netherworld platform. Qin Yu glanced at Old Fox and He Tiangang. On the way here, the number of demons that had their legs broken by these two had to be at least 80, if not 100. Indeed, beautiful women were a source of calamity. Chapter 1071. Of course, it didn't matter whether it was a disaster or not. In any case, it wasn't him. Moreover, these demons that had their legs broken weren't any good people. He couldn't sympathize with them at all. Thus, Qin Yu subconsciously turned his attention to the Netherworld platform in front of him. The first thing he saw was the incomparably large word Netherworld that was dripping with blood, as if it were cast from blood. A bloody and infernal energy rushed towards him, causing him to instinctively feel fear and awe. Even if he didn't know the reputation and strength of the Netherworld platform, just seeing these two words would cause him to feel an instinctive sense of dread. Qin Yu could faintly feel the terrifying aura contained within the word Netherworld. Although he didn't know who had written this, the one who had written these two words was definitely a peak, great demon of the abyss. The entire outline of the Netherworld platform was like an incomparably massive platform that rose up from the ground. There were countless windows of various sizes that shined brightly from within. The dozens of entrances to the first floor were all open. There were demons guarding the entrances, inspecting all kinds of tickets. The tickets to the front of the infield were enough to be called honored guests. After Old Fox took out his ticket, the group was immediately treated with courtesy. Not only did they have priority passage, but there was also a special which leading the way, sending them to their respective seats. The seats in the infield were even more spacious. Liao Shi and Qin Yu sat down while He Tiangang, Old Fox, and Mian Yu stood to the side. The witch's eyes brightened and her tone became even more respectful. Honored guests, if there is anything you need help with during the auction, please let me know. I will stay here to serve you. After she finished speaking, she respectfully bowed and stepped back to the side. Then, she took out her internal communication demon artifact to report news of the honored guests so that they could keep an eye out for them. Those that bought 5 infield tickets at once might have spent a sum of demon crystals to enter the infield to see the world. But with 5 tickets, only 2 people were seated and the other 3 were standing to the side. This was a great difference. Not to mention anything else. Just the price of the infield tickets had already been raised to the heavens, let alone this sort of consecutive tickets. For 3 servants to follow them in, it could be seen that they didn't lack demon crystals and didn't care about this little bit of money. Such a person was definitely a distinguished guest. Liao Shi looked around excitedly, waiting for the auction to begin. Qin Yu glanced at the Netherworld platform demoness not too far away, and then at the conspicuous He Tiangang, Old Fox, and Mianya. He thought for a moment and said, "All of you sit down." "Thank you, sir." Old Fox's eyes flashed. He seemed to have guessed Qin Yu's thoughts. He respectfully thanked him and sat down. He Tiangang and Mian Yu also sat beside him. Liao Shi suddenly thought of an extremely serious matter and hurriedly turned his head to ask, "Do we have enough magical crystals?" Qin Yu's lips twitched. Wasn't it a bit too late for her to ask at such a time? Old Fox smiled. "Miss, don't worry. I have enough." He Tiangang also nodded. If it isn't enough, I still have some here. I'm sure Miss will be satisfied. The two of them appeared calm, but it wasn't intentional. It was just that, with their status and identity, mana crystals were just a number to them. So what if he spent it all? As long as Miss Liaosher was satisfied, everything was worth it. Moreover, if they wanted more mana crystals, with their strength, they could casually move their fingers. It was far too easy. Liaosher's smile was bright. That's good. But don't worry, I won't spend your mana crystals in vain. When I find Qinyu in the future, he will pay me back. Qinyu frowned. Liaosher, don't go too far. Why should I pay you back what you owe? Humph humph. Just because I saved your life? Don't forget, if it weren't for me, the arcane technique would have already killed you. Do you think you would still be alive and kicking today? Liaosher sneered. You only need to repay me with some mana crystals for saving your life, and yet you aren't satisfied? Qinyu, do you know what the words heartless and unscrupulous mean? Qin Yu's face darkened. His heart was filled with helplessness. He knew that Liaosher would use this as a reason to bully him. And sure enough, his premonition had become reality today. Old Fox hurriedly said, Don't worry, don't worry. It's just a few mana crystals. Sir, miss, you can have as many as you want. There is no need to pay me back. Qin Yu shook his head. That's a different matter. Since I used them to repay you for saving my life, I will definitely repay this debt. Liaosher smiled. She clapped her hands and praised. You have guts, you have ambition. I like people like you who keep to your words. Then, I will have to spend a bit more today. Otherwise, I will be too unfair to you. Qin Yu closed his eyes and leaned back in his soft and comfortable chair, no longer looking at this smug woman. Seeing him avoid the battle, Liaosher became even more spirited. She felt that recently when facing Qinyu, she was becoming fiercer and fiercer. She was always able to gain the upper hand. Is he deliberately going easy on me? No, it was clearly me who argued until he was left speechless, so he could only obediently lower his head. That's right. Netherworld platform, auction hall. Lan Bo sat in a booth, his eyes slightly closed as he listened to the whispers of a guard beside him. Shwa. His eyes opened, and a sharp light flashed in them. In other words, that Miss Liaosher is also in the Netherworld platform? Yes, young master. The demon respectfully replied. Lan Bo's lips curled up and his eyes sparkled. Fate, it really is fate. Perhaps this is the best arrangement the abyss has for me. Black Armor lowered his head, his lips twitching. In truth, he didn't think so. It had to be known that there were many different kinds of fate. For instance, ill-fated karma. That Miss Liaosher clearly had a high status. Although she was the city lord's younger brother and had a noble background, she might not necessarily take a liking to her. If this was handled improperly, it would likely set off a storm. The thought of dissuading him raced through his mind several times, but in the end he didn't say it. The young master had clearly been tempted. If he said anything else, it would only be useless. He could only hope that nothing unexpected would happen. Lan Bo thought for a moment. He lifted a hand and beckoned. The witch that was serving him quickly walked over and respectfully half knelt on the ground. What orders does young master have? Come here. I have something I would like to ask for your help with. The witch didn't shy away from him. Half of her soft body pressed against his as she breathed out. Young master, please speak. Lan Bo's lips curled up. He had participated in the auction of the Netherworld platform before, so he already knew some of the intricacies involved. For example, these witches were responsible for entertaining guests. If the guests were interested, they could take them away to their heart's content. It had been some time since he had gotten close to a woman. Being seduced by this witch, he couldn't help but be moved. But now wasn't the time for a moment of pleasure. Lan Bo reached out and caressed the witch's plump breasts. Then he moved closer to her ear and whispered a few words. The witch revealed a look of difficulty. Lan Bo's fingers continued to move. He smiled and said, "Strictly speaking, this isn't a violation of the rules of the Netherworld platform. I just want to know the location of a friend. As long as you help me, I won't mistreat you." The witch blushed. After a moment of hesitation, she nodded. "Young master, please wait a moment." She waited until he withdrew his hand before standing up and leaving. Black Armor said in a low voice, "Young master, the witches of the Netherworld platform all cultivate a plucking technique. It is best not to have any relations with them." Lonbo lightly said, "Don't worry, I know what I'm doing." Although this Black Armor was loyal, he was too cautious and inflexible. This wasn't the type of person Chenyu liked. After they arrived at Evil Peak City, he would have his elder brother switch to someone else to listen to his orders. After a moment, the witch returned. She walked to Lonbo's side and whispered some words to him. Lonbo's eyes brightened and he smiled. "Very good. This is for you." The witch received the leather belt. She glanced at it with a happy expression. After thanking him again and again, she threw him a flirtatious look and left. Lonbo's eyes crossed the auction area. As he looked at a place diagonally across from him, a burning heat flashed in his eyes. Everyone naturally liked beauty. But as his elder brother rose up and the family became increasingly powerful, he didn't lack for pleasures. If it was just a beautiful woman, then his heart might have been moved, but it wasn't unworthy of his efforts. The key was that this woman called Liao Shi had an extraordinary status. Although he had only glanced at her from afar, his awakened demonic bloodline had the ability to see through illusions. He had directly seen through her disguise. This woman's appearance didn't have any trace of a demonic bloodline. She was definitely a princess with a noble bloodline. If this was all there was to it, then it wouldn't be a problem. But Liao Shi had peak demon general level guards at her side. This was the embodiment of her strength. It had to be known that the abyss was filled with endless battles all year round. It wasn't rare for kings to perish, so there were naturally many declining bloodlines that were left behind. Such princesses would often fall to the point of becoming the exclusive property of some great figure, their fates incomparably miserable. But Liao Shi clearly had a powerful background. If he could marry her, not only would he obtain the strength of his in-laws and consolidate his family status, but he could also strengthen his bloodline so that his descendants would have some royal blood flowing through them. Although his elder brother had said that everything was fine, he had his own information channels and knew the pressure he faced. The Lord of Erfing City had an incomparably noble status, but the higher one stood, the greater the risk one had to bear. Behind the boundless glory was a bottomless cliff. The slightest carelessness could cause one to fall into it and die a horrible death. If he could marry a princess, this in itself would be the greatest help to his elder brother. For many years, it had been his elder brother who had shielded him from the wind and rain. Now, it was time for him to do something for his elder brother. As for their status, although their Lan clan didn't have a royal bloodline, they were still a top-tier, high-tier demon clan. With an existence like his elder brother, their future was limitless. Given his status, as long as he did things properly, it wasn't impossible for him to marry a princess. Not to mention, Lonbo was extremely confident in his ability to deal with women. The auction began. When the first auction item appeared on the stage, Liao Shi immediately entered a state of excitement. Her face flushed red and her eyes lit up. "Esteemed guests, I will be the host for the first round of the auction. Let's not waste any time. Please take a look at the auction item." The elegant and smiling auctioneer gestured with his hand, drawing everyone's attention to a crystal-like object placed on the red velvet. "Everyone, please take a look. This object is formed from the crystallization of the heart of a dead demon beast king. The Netherworld platform has verified that there is still a trace of blood essence left within." As he spoke, he lifted his hand and pointed at the crystalline object. After the object trembled slightly, a line of blood suddenly lit up. Soon after, the image of a giant beast appeared in the air. roaring furiously at the sky. The auctioneer withdrew his hand, and the crystal-like object returned to its original state. The line of blood dissipated, and the phantom of the giant beast disappeared. But that moment was enough for everyone to recognize the identity of the giant beast. Silver-backed, purple-eared bear. That's right, it's this demon beast. The Bear Beast King must have awakened its bloodline ability. If one is lucky enough, they might even be able to obtain its powerful abilities from this wisp of blood essence. The eyes of many demons in the auction house brightened. Most of them were tall and muscular, and their muscles bulged like they were made of iron. The Abyss demon race all had the bloodline of a demon, and it was better to absorb it from the same race. It was no wonder that these people were excited. Chapter 1072. The bear demonic bloodline was considered powerful in the Abyss. Thus, there were many people with this bloodline in today's auction house. Moreover, it didn't mean that only the bear demonic bloodline could absorb a trace of the crystallized demon beast king's heart's blood essence. Demonic bloodlines of the same type had a certain chance, just that the effects would be slightly worse. Thus, this first auction item caused the hearts of many demons to heat up. They thought to themselves that the Netherworld platform's fame really couldn't be underestimated. The crystallized heart of the demon beast king, silverback, purple-eared bear that still has a trace of its blood essence. The starting price is 500,000 demon crystals. Interested guests, please bid. The auctioneer's smile didn't change, but the number he spat out was extremely unfriendly. Demon crystals were precious crystals that were formed in special environments due to the massive accumulation of abyssal demonic energy. They were used as currency by the abyssal demons. Of course, the reason why magical crystals could replace the function of currency was that they themselves were a powerful cultivation booster. Even though there were many restrictions on using magical crystals to cultivate, that alone was enough for them to have a transcendent status. 500,000 demon crystals was a number that ordinary demons wouldn't even dare to dream of in their entire lives. It was enough to make a demon general go bankrupt. And more importantly, 500,000 demon crystals was just the starting price of this crystallized demon beast king's heart. Only the heavens knew how high the final price would go. But the demons that entered the auction house today were clearly mentally prepared. Although the starting price of 500,000 demon crystals was terrifying, it didn't scare them. You got what you paid for, whether it was the abyss or the world of the living. This was an unquestionable truth. Good things naturally had to have a good price. 500,000. Ever since the first bid was made, the competition for this demon beast king's heart became intense. Each and every one of the burly demon race men, whose arms could be bent to the size of a horse, were fighting so fiercely that their faces and necks were flushed, and the veins on their foreheads were bulging. Soon, the price broke through 1 million demon crystals. At this price, ordinary demon generals could no longer participate. After eliminating a large number of bidders, the guests in the VIP seats began to leave the auction. Of course, there weren't many demons in the auction house. They already knew about the information about this auction, and most of the demon crystals they had prepared already had a target in mind. Unless there was an accident, he wouldn't easily scatter his focus on other items, lest the item he locked on to be stolen. So this is an auction. Liao sure muttered to himself. His eyes were particularly bright as he looked to his left, then to his right, and there was a look of hesitation on his face. Old Fox was puzzled. After thinking for a while, he smiled and said, "Miss, if you also like this demon beast king's heart, you can bid for it. Just treat it as practice." Pausing for a moment, he swept his eyes around. The Netherworld platform's auctions always have the best items at the back. Once you familiarize yourself with the bidding rules, you won't suffer a loss. Ah, is that so? Hee, I won't stand on ceremony then. Liao sure cleared his throat and raised his hand. 2 million. Schwa. In the auction house, the sounds of bidding suddenly quieted down. In the booths in the inner area, several people who were bidding frowned slightly. 1,500,000 was probably the ideal price for the crystallized heart of the silverback, purple-eared bear in their minds. 2,000,000 demon crystals. It wasn't that it wasn't worth it. Moreover, looking at the momentum of the other party's bid, it was clear that they were determined to win. If they continued to struggle, they feared that the price would continue to rise. At that time, even if they successfully won the bid, they would have spent a great deal of money. Moreover, it was possible that they would have formed some enmity with others. Everyone here had demon crystals, otherwise it would be impossible for them to sit in the VIP booths. But no one's demon crystal was an abyssal wind that came out of nowhere. Moreover, everyone had their own goals today. If you made things difficult for someone else, then in the following auctions, the other party would only need to lift a hand or move their lips to make you pay several times the price. In short, there was no smart person who was willing to do something like this. It was a completely strenuous thing. After a short period of hesitation, the several booths in the inner area chose to shut their mouths and give up the demon beast king's heart. 2,100,000. A deep and resonant voice sounded out from the outer area. The one who bid was a middle-aged demon with a demonic bear bloodline. His face was flushed red and his fists were tightly clenched together. His eyes were filled with nervousness. It was clear that with his demon general level cultivation, this bid was already the limit of what he could afford. 3,000,000. Liao Shi excitedly raised his hand. Qin Yu's lips twitched. He glanced at Old Fox, who had a strange expression on his face. He silently mourned for his demon crystal. If the auction house were to encounter a contestant that increased the bid like this, they would surely be overjoyed. They hoped that everyone would follow suit. 3,000,000. The young lady over here has bid 3,000,000 demon crystals. Is there any guest willing to show greater sincerity? The auctioneer's voice unconsciously became a bit more high-pitched. The first item had been sold, and the price was already above the estimated amount. This would play a role in promoting the rest of the auction. Who? The demonic bear bloodline in the outer area let out a long breath. He slumped back into his seat. As he looked at the inner area, there was a trace of hatred and cruelty in his eyes. But soon, he put away these crazy thoughts in his heart. Not to mention that this was the Netherworld platform. Even if he left, someone that could casually toss out 3,000,000 without batting an eye wasn't someone he could afford to provoke. Congratulations to this young lady. 3,000,000 has been sold. After you pay the demon crystals, you may take away this demon beast king's heart at any time. Congratulations once more. As the wooden hammer fell, the auctioneer took the lead in applauding. There was a burst of enthusiastic applause in the auction house. Countless eyes gathered on Liao Shi. The surrounding demons all smiled and nodded. Liao Shi's face flushed red. He couldn't hide the smug look on his face. He lightly snorted and said, "Do you see? I was born to participate in such a grand occasion as an auction." Old Fox and Hei Tiangang tried hard for a long time, but their faces couldn't help but fiercely twitch. Qin Yu rolled his eyes. He thought that the clapping demons must be cursing in their hearts. Where did this girl come from? She was simply a stick that stirred things up. The reason he greeted her was because he hoped that in the following auctions he could ask her to be magnanimous and not randomly bid. To think that she didn't even realize it and was even so smug about it. Liao Shi. Oh, Liao Shi, sometimes I think you're extremely intelligent and deeply hidden, but sometimes you can even be called a stupid idiot. Of course, he could only keep these thoughts in his heart. He definitely couldn't say them out loud. Moreover, looking at Old Fox and Hei Tiangang, although they had strange expressions, they didn't seem to be forcing things. It was likely that a mere several million demon crystals wasn't anything in their eyes at all. After all, one was the leader of a 1,000-eye hall branch division, and the other was the master of the massive Merry Forest. As demon commander-level existences that had lived for countless years, they were bound to be extremely wealthy. If Liao Shi was willing to spend their demon crystals, These two old demons would surely be overjoyed. At the side, the demoness led several demons from the Netherworld platform, carrying the box containing the demon Beast King's heart. She respectfully bowed and said, "Honored guest, please inspect it. If there are no problems, then we can complete the payment." Old Fox stood up and opened the box to take a look. Then he nodded and took out a deep cyan crystal card. The phantom of a horrifying abyssal beast was engraved on its surface. It was a three-headed hellhound that was nearly as tall as the heavens. This was the king of the abyss of this level, the three-headed demon hound race, and it was a storage card jointly issued by several large influences. And the Netherworld platform was one of the shareholders behind the scenes of this financial bank. After the demoness saw the crystal card, she became even more respectful. She didn't believe that anyone would dare to make a joke out of the Netherworld platform. So this crystal card in front of her must be real. And the crystal card itself was a symbol of status. It was an affirmation of one's strength and wealth. Only a truly great figure could possess such a card. But this demoness in front of her was extremely respectful to the other two youths in the booth. From the looks of it, they were subordinates and servants, and yet they could casually take out this sort of demon crystal card? If so, just how honored were the statuses of these two youths? The demoness didn't dare to imagine. But as her eyes swept over Chinyu, she couldn't help but reveal a burning heat in her eyes. As a demoness chosen by the Netherworld platform to entertain guests from all over, regardless of cultivation or bloodline, her appearance and figure were absolutely top class. If she could climb into this young master's bed, then even if she couldn't obtain any status, just a little bit of something from him would be enough for her to live the rest of her life without worrying about food or clothing. Mianya glared at the demoness and cursed her inwardly. "You little hussy, you actually dare to have ideas about Chinyu? Why don't you take a look at yourself first? Even I, a beauty of the nine-tailed demon fox race, haven't been able to climb into his bed. So what right do you have to have such thoughts?" Old Fox swiped his card to pay the bill. The several demons from the Netherworld platform respectfully bowed and excused themselves. The demoness had a bitter look in her eyes. But from start to finish, Chinyu didn't even glance at her. All his attention was focused on the blind man. After the several demons left, Liaosher suddenly said, "Chinyu, I didn't think you would attract women so much." Chinyu expressionlessly said, "Can I take that as a compliment?" Liaosher spat and cursed him for being shameless. Then he turned his head away from Chinyu and stared at the auction stage once more. The second auction item had already begun. Lan Bo rubbed his chin. He reached out a hand and gently stroked the demoness body a few times. He smiled and said, "You've done well. After the auction ends, I will order someone to bring you to your residence." The demoness blushed red and her eyes blurred. She nodded and stood up, moving to the side. To think that the holders of the abyssal demon crystal cards are actually Miss Liao's subordinates. This identity is probably even more noble and difficult to approach than I thought. But the more it's like this, the more it means that if I succeed, I'll be able to reap unimaginable rewards. Lan Bo's eyes flashed as his thoughts raced. Black Armor took a deep breath. He said, "Sir, I think your actions are a bit too rash. I ask you to reconsider." The more powerful a demon race was, the more they valued their bloodline. Even if they were to marry, they would only do so with powerful bloodlines of the same level. Any attempt to tarnish their noble bloodline would be viewed as a provocation and affront to their entire race. In the endless years of the Abyss, there had been stories of a commoner boy overturning a fair, rich, and beautiful woman, or a prince falling in love with a Cinderella. But the Abyss was not a fairy tale world. The final fates of these people were often far more miserable than anyone could imagine. Of course, it wasn't that there were no successful cases, but the number was so small that calling it a phoenix feather or a Chelan horn was an exaggeration. Black Armor had received a great favor from the city lord and received orders to welcome the second young master into evil Peak City. Of course, he had to be loyal to his duty and prevent the second young master from encountering danger. But unfortunately, Lan Bo was not his elder brother. Although he was intelligent and patient, he did not know how to act according to his own abilities. Moreover, the most important thing was that Lan Bo's position in himself seemed to be a little too high. Thus, in his opinion, while it was difficult to pursue the princess, it wasn't impossible. Moreover, if he succeeded, he would reap a bountiful harvest. His elder brother and even the entire family would look at him in a new light. Thus, in the face of Black Armor's loyal words, he frowned and sneered. "Black Armor, don't forget your status. You are just a servant of my family. Do you dare look down on me?"